a psychological war against Trump? One neuroscientist says we have to. So let's talk to him. It's Bobby Azarian. He's got a PhD in cognitive neuroscience. He's a Psychology Today blogger. His Substack and YouTube channel are called Road to Omega. We've talked to him about his books on other topics before. Bobby, welcome back.
Hey, Jing. Thanks for having me back.
No problem.
It's fun.
It is, whether we're talking about the cosmos, the universe, or we're talking about politics. So
it's all connected.
It is in a lot of ways, as you write about. So tell me about this article where you wrote, a neuroscientist warns the war with Trump has just begun and it's deeply psychological. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, it's a catchy article for a raw story. I think it's kind of offering up some red meat for people, but it's about a lot more than just that. But it starts off just saying that, you know, we can expect Trump to not go away. I mean, he's out of a lot of people's sight. You know, he's not on Twitter for the moment. He's not on you don't see him on like CNN and MSNBC as much as you did before. So we tend to think that the problem's not there. But in the background, he's acquiring more power and kind of aligning the Republican Party with Trump loyalists. And we have to pay attention to that because he may run again and it's possible that he could win. And if he fills, you know, Congress with loyalists, then he can get away with something like he was trying to do last time when he was trying to overturn the results of the election. Luckily, Mike Pence didn't go along with his plan, but had he, and had they influenced the Electoral College, that could have changed the course of US history. So we need to be vigilant and we need to be thinking about what's the best strategy to make sure that Trump doesn't get back into office.
So Bobby, agreed on all those things. So he's obviously running again, and I think he still has an excellent chance of winning, unfortunately, and we should not be complacent at all. And I further agree that the Democratic strategies used against him so far have not worked. They keep emphasizing his strengths. They don't realize it, but they keep saying he's a bad man, and he's too combative with mainstream media and mainstream Democrats and Republicans. But what they don't realize is the country hates mainstream media and Democrats and Republicans. So, and they don't mind that he's combative. They like that he's combative. They're helping his populist image, even though we know that it's faux populism. He doesn't mean any of it, and he did all the corruption and even worse than the regular politicians. But so since we know all that, I want to skip to the part where you come up with a better plan. Okay, so what's a psychological way of fighting Trump that could work?
So I think that we have to think about what's going on in terms of psychology. And I also think that we have to put something new forward. And I think you can form something like a political platform based on principles from science. And I'm not saying that science has the answers to everything. I'm saying that it provides principles and methods for basically how to optimize social systems based on our understanding of other complex adaptive systems. So complexity science and evolutionary theory sees all of these shared features between organisms and social systems. And that's because you as a complex organism, you're actually a community of agents. You're not a single thing. You're this community of semi-autonomous agents that collectively make this functional whole. Now, the same could be said for society. So society is a system of agents that's also trying to maintain its organization and to be resilient in the face of chaos. So yeah, there are principles from system science that we can use to think about something like a new political platform for potentially a third party or a new progressive party. In the article, I talk about the Forward Party, which is something that Andrew Yang has kind of been the face of. And it might sound kind of counterintuitive if I'm saying we have to beat Trump, what's the best strategy to talk about a third party? But because the nation is so polarized, And because the sides have become so extreme, I think it creates the perfect opportunity for something new to emerge. And yeah, I think, you know, the two-party system's broken, and this may be the time to try to give something new a shot.
So, Bobby, if you say, hey, let's learn and test out our theories, like the scientific method, which you do say in the article, I totally agree with that, 100%. In fact, that's what we try to do at Rebellion PAC. We try to learn from each race that we run, and we test out theories. Did it make sense? Did it not? And if you're wedded to your way of thinking, and only your way of thinking, you'll never learn, and you won't learn enough to be able to win. So that part also makes sense. But when you talk about a third party, well, that gets into very complicated waters, right? So Andrew Yang, I think, is a good person. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I think that he's genuine and honest. But the Forward Party has a couple of issues. One of them is that it's filled with Republicans. And in my experience, even the mainstream Republicans and the establishment Republicans and the never-Trumpers, they only really care about power. And so if it's going to get Republicans a backdoor into power, they're thrilled to take it. But my guess is if the Forward Party went in a progressive direction, every Republican in the Forward Party would bail instantly.
Yeah, so the Forward Party, as it stands today, might not be the right party, but the fact that it has emerged and you know, actually has some political weight makes me think others can do the same. Also, it's a young party, so maybe the party can kind of get hijacked by a group that has better, more forward-thinking, progressive ideas, and you know, kind of piggyback on that infrastructure, almost like a virus would piggyback on an organism and make it its own. So really, the problem is, I mean, what are we going to do otherwise? We saw in the last election, and when I say this, I want to preface it by with the fact that I don't think that Bernie Sanders' ideology is the best for America. I don't think socialism, even democratic socialism, is necessarily the answer. But what we saw the Democrats do was when Bernie was winning, Pete Buttigieg, who was second, dropped out and put his support behind Joe Biden. And then suddenly Biden went from like fourth or fifth place to first. And, you know, months later, Pete was offered a cabinet position in return. So when you're seeing the other side play dirty and lie like Trump was doing, and then you see your side use some of the same tactics, even if someone can make that argument that it was for the greater good, but when you see your side cheating just a little bit, it almost just makes you want to quit the game. And I think we're at that point. Not only, you know, is politics just filled with corruption because basically the name of the game is rich people fund your campaign and then you're in debt to those people. Not only is that a problem, just the level of political polarization that we're at right now is making the left define themselves as the complete antithesis of the right. And so if the right is like talking about, you know, stronger stances on immigration, the left will be for open borders. If the right says everything's a conspiracy, the left will say there are no conspiracies at all. If the right says we want unregulated capitalism, the left will say we need to go towards communism. So I think that it's the time for something new. How we do that, how we make that something that gains momentum and actually stands a chance is a whole nother thing. But I think if there were a time in history that such a thing could be possible, it's right now. Like the conditions are perfect for it. So we have to try, and maybe we try. And if it turns out that, you know, the candidate isn't anywhere close to the popularity of Joe Biden, and it looks like that it could pull away just enough support from Biden that it would allow Trump to win. In that case, that you would just do what basically I just explained that, you know, Pete and Joe did. You would just throw the support behind the popular anti-Trump candidate and go with that. But that doesn't mean that we can't try to go for something new and radical in the meantime. And just one more comment on the Forward Party. Centrism won't always take us forward. It won't always lead to progress. Sometimes ideas that are in between the extremes are going to be superior, a lot of times actually, but sometimes they might come from the right, sometimes they might come from the left, and sometimes they might be something new that's not even on the map. So that's what if it's called the Forward Party, it has to be truly progressive. Progressive doesn't mean extreme, it means coming up with new good ideas. And I think these ideas, we can pull it from, for example, the system science and evolutionary theory principles that I've mentioned. You can look at crypto economics. I know there's a lot of like anger against like crypto right now, and there should, be a lot of suspicion around characters in that space. But overall, it just provides a new technology that can allow new kinds of economies and self-organizing systems. So I think it's the time to try to forge out a new path, and that's really what I'm trying to do on my Substack, Road to Omega, with the help of some others, is see if we can create something like a platform for a third party that's truly progressive, but not on either of these extremes, that puts forward ideas that both sides can say, okay, that's reasonable.
Yeah. So Bobby, I think that you're onto the right idea, but it's a little off, if I might say so myself, and I might, and I do.
This works through throwing ideas out there, experiments, and then criticism plays the role of natural selection. So please tell me what I can change.
So first of all, there are almost no extremists on the Democratic Party, unless you're considering extreme love of corporate donors, which does suck, and it sucks royally. But CNN would call that moderate, and New York Times would call that moderate and centrist, right? So the Democrats' extremists are in this quote unquote center, according to Washington, right? Maybe we should take advice from a former Republican on how to beat Donald Trump. Yeah, let's do that. Let's bring in Joe Walsh, former US Congressman in the Republican Party, host of the White Flag with Joe Walsh podcast. Joe, welcome back.
Always good to be with you, brother.
All right, great to have you. So Trump just had dinner with Kanye West and Nick Fuentes over the weekend, both virulent anti-Semites, and Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist. So he says, oh golly gee, I had no idea who Nick Fuentes was. People can come by all the time, and if neo-Nazis walk in, I just have dinner with them. I mean, that's all. There's no way I could have known. You're not buying it. Tell me why you're not buying
it. Because Trump lies every time he opens his mouth. But Cenk, here's the thing. Look, you and I have talked. I come from the mega base. I helped to radicalize the mega base. The important point here is not what Trump did. And it's really not even the fact that all these Republicans are basically silent in the wake of what Trump did. The biggest problem is the vast majority of Republican base voters don't have a problem with what Trump did. And Cenk, I know that because that's all I've heard for 5 days, the past 5 days from them. So as long as the Republican base feels that way, cowards like DeSantis and Cruz and the rest, they're not going to say anything.
So it's a great point, Joe. And on Monday's show of the Young Turks, a viewer made a similar point where they said, well, that Trump has actually not denounced Fuentes at all. Like he said, oh, oops, I didn't know who he was, but he didn't actually even say oops. He never apologized for having dinner with him. And okay, fine, he doesn't do apologies, but he never even said, oh yeah, what Nick Fuentes says is awful, right? And that's just like the bare minimum. And Joe, in a normal world, if we had two healthy parties, if the former president, who's now running again for the office, came out and said, oh yeah, these anti-Semites that think that Hitler is kind of cool and we should drive Jews from the country, I had dinner with them, but what's the big deal? Hey, Kanye liked me and he said nice things about me on Tucker Carlson's show, which is literally what Trump said. They would lose all their popularity because the country would go, both the voters in both parties would go, oh no, hell no, right? But Trump's not going to lose his popularity, is he?
No, he's the odds-on favorite to be the 24 nominee. That's clear. Trump's gonna be indicted, and I think an indictment will strengthen him within the Republican Party. Trump can't call out Nick Fuentes, this white supremacist, because he doesn't want to offend his base. Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican senator from Louisiana, he and I served in the House together. He said something yesterday that he condemned Trump by name, and he said, this isn't who the Republican Party is. This white Christian nationalism isn't who the party is. Respectfully, I said to Bill, it is what the base of the party is. And maybe I've got a weird vantage point, but again, I come from the base and I help to radicalize them. This white Christian nationalism is fundamental to the Republican Party base.
100%. Look, if you don't remember, Joe Walsh was one of the guys who started the Tea Party and was one of Obama's biggest critics. So what he's saying is absolutely true, that he comes from the base. And so, and I have eyes. I think that and ears, which apparently sets me apart from the rest of media, because mainstream media only looks at things from their own perspective. And so they look at their whole lives, they've been telling us Republican Party, Democratic Party, we can't tell the difference. They're all the same, it's 50-50, both sides do it nonstop, right? So when they see Trump doing all these racist, anti-Semitic, et cetera things, they think, oh, it's just Trump. But then why did 93% of Republicans vote for him in the last election? It's not just Trump. Even Biden, even in his famous Philly speech where he was apparently, the right wing claims he was authoritarian. No, he said the majority of Republicans are not MAGA. But Joe, that's not true, is it? I mean, and here, don't we have the proof in the pudding that was served as dessert at Mar-a-Lago? That if his numbers go down, you and I are wrong. If he loses like 20-30% of Republican voters overnight, because they're like, what? I'm not a white supremacist, I don't want to vote for that guy. I'm not an anti-Semite who thinks we should drive Jews from the country or that black people are inferior. All things Fuentes has said, right? I'm out, right? Then we'll know the Republican Party was not those things. But if he doesn't lose any popularity within the Republican Party, don't we also have our answer?
We absolutely do have our answer. And look, every Republican donor and every Republican establishment type and all the Republican bigwigs, they all want Trump gone. They don't have the courage to push him away. And they're all pinning their hopes, Cenk, on this Ron DeSantis. Well, now think about it. It's been 5 or 6 days since Trump had dinner with a Jew-hating, black-hating, Holocaust-denying white supremacist. 5 to 6 days, and Ron DeSantis hasn't said a damn thing. And what? This is the guy who's supposed to beat Trump in a Republican primary? No way.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, what do you have the odds at now? Because look, I think mainstream media and right-wing media have, they basically are in the illusion business. They set up these incredible, elaborate illusions for their audience, and oftentimes on economic issues and protecting the establishment, they actually agree. They're playing good cop, bad cop with us. And when after the midterms, that's exactly what we saw. They've created this illusion that the entire Republican Party has left Trump. And then you see a real poll from, I think it was, I forget Emerson. It was from Emerson. And no, he's still got like a 30-point lead on DeSantis. Okay, so do you think DeSantis even has a chance in the primaries?
Yes, I'll tell you this, Cenk. I talk to the base every day. And I have sensed since the midterms some erosion of support. But we've been down this road before. For the first week or two after January 6th, I sensed some erosion. I heard erosion from the Republican Party base then. But within a few weeks, they were back behind him. And a year later, he was even stronger. So the guy literally incited a violent attempt to overthrow an American election, and he's still the leader of the party. So he's having dinner with a white supremacist. I don't believe that this erosion of support is permanent because, Cenk, this is what I'm concerned about. Trump is going to be indicted. He deserves to be indicted. But I'm telling you what, Republican voters will rally around him once that happens. Deep state, deep state, deep state, they will say. I don't know how DeSantis or Pence or anybody deals with that.
Yeah, I think Trump's still the favorite, but I do think he is beatable. I think you're absolutely right that the indictment will lead to a rallying around the flag. It should have come a long time ago, so we could have been past that stage. The Democrats will bungle it as always. They're the #1 bunglers in the world. But I do agree with you that yes, it's DeSantis is not the favorite, but there is a way to beat Trump. And so let me run it by you. My thought is, if I was DeSantis, I would focus on how Trump is not good at the things that people on the right wing like him for. So one of the things I would say is he's not that good at owning the libs. He led the libs to own us in these elections. He's lost 2 massive elections in a row, so we're not winning with Trump, right? And I, Ron DeSantis, want to own the libs more than Trump, and I'm better at it. Look at how much I won by in Florida. So let me pause there for that argument right there. Do you think that's more effective than all the other things that Democrats and mainstream media have thrown at him?
I think it's a better road to go down. And to your point, Cenk, this is the note in unison that every Republican has been saying since the midterms. Not that Trump is unfit and dangerous, but he can't win. So that is an argument.
Yeah, and I noticed that in Georgia, for example, Republican voters did care about electability. And so they did not go with the Trump candidates for governor, et cetera. They were like, no, we might lose to Stacey Abrams, so we've got to put Brian Kemp back in so he could beat Stacey Abrams. So that's, I think, an interesting strategy. Another one would be to say, hey, this guy's always been part of the elites. And you remember how the Clintons cooked up that idea that he would be the guy that they could put inside the Republican Party and destroy it. Hey, that's kind of working right now. So is he part of a Clinton conspiracy to destroy the Republican Party? What do you think?
I love you, brother, but that won't fly. Nobody in the Republican Party base is going to buy that or pick up on that, even if it's true.
Okay, that's interesting. But he did give a lot of money to Democratic candidates. So could DeSantis use that against him to say he's not really in our tribe? He's just a con man trying to use our tribe.
No, because here's what so many people, I know you get it, but so many people in the media don't understand. Donald Trump owns 35% of the Republican vote, and it's not, they aren't supporters, they're followers. He is a cult leader, and that's really, really powerful. DeSantis's only play here is Trump did some great things. His time has passed. We've got to win. I'll beat Trump, but I can win.
So you're saying don't even attack him if you're DeSantis. Just say
no. What? Yeah, no, Cenk. Think about this. Trump's going to be indicted. So you're Ron DeSantis on a debate stage with Trump a year from now, and Trump's been indicted. What are you going to say? That the indictment was unfair? Are you going to say Trump deserved to be indicted? You can't say that because the base doesn't want to hear it. So DeSantis would have to scream the deep state. It's a really tough place to be in.
So you're saying the only answer for DeSantis is go along with everything that Trump is saying. By the way, then that means he was right not to criticize the Fuentes Kanye West dinner, right? Because you don't want to upset the base.
Yes.
Right? And I can't believe they indicted poor Trump. But guys, as much as I would love to, but this guy just can't win. And he's now proven that a couple of times. And so I'm better at owning the libs. Let me own them better. And that's your only way to do a Luke Skywalker like laser shot into the middle of the Death Star?
Yeah, because think about this, Cenk. You're on a debate stage with Trump in a year, and Trump says again the 2020 election was stolen. What does Ron DeSantis say on that debate stage? He cannot say, no, it wasn't stolen, President Trump. Joe Biden won fair and square. If Ron DeSantis said that, he could never win a Republican primary. So he's got to echo Trump and say, I love the guy, I believed in him, but we Republicans have to win.
Do all of you know the Young Turks?
An outlet like yourself that are willing to cover this story from the very beginning.
You have the Young Turks and a bunch of other progressive forces saying this is the time to fight for our values.
And I think right now there are a lot of progressive voters, many leftists who feel like they don't have a home.
And this is why what Cenk and the Young Turks are doing is so important.
What we've done is sustainable, slow, healthy growth. And I think that's the way news should be, where you don't rely on sensationalist stuff. You don't lean on whatever's trendy in the news at any given moment. You know, you just go with the truth.
You gave me a platform.
You've uplifted so many other progressive voices through this network, and you're constantly looking for people that you can amplify through the work we do, through the infrastructure that you built at TYT.
It takes those early people who believe that can really be the seeds of this movement, and that has been the Young Turks.
We're super serious about the news. We also managed to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We're not TYT, you're TYT.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Idarola. This is gonna be a big one.
Meanwhile, in the Arctic, you know where this is going. You watch the Damage Report, the Arctic's on fire. Obviously, why would we be talking about the Arctic except to tell you that it's melting once again? The Republicans aren't that interested in it. I wonder why. Lift out of poverty up to 3.7 million people, including an estimated 1.3 million children. Hashtag save the children? Not if it costs money. I mean, come on.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was a white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
I'm back to gaslighting. Did you and I talk about gaslighting on Old School?
Probably.
That boss gaslit all his female employees. People who manipulate others like that make you feel like you're the weirdo. Why won't you punch yourself in the face? What is wrong with you? And you're like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Why didn't I just punch myself in the face and poke my eye out? I'm 47 and I just figured it out like earlier this year.
You figured out somebody was doing it to you or that you were
that it was that it would have been happening my whole life and I didn't realize it.
Right.
Get some!
Turks, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys on a lovely, lovely Tuesday afternoon. America advances. We advance, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to the round of 16. Okay, so it's not a sports show, but I do want to say USA, USA, USA. Okay, so having said that, now let's do the news.
Well, we begin with some bad news coming from the Biden administration in response to a looming rail strike. So let's discuss. The Biden administration has called on Congress to intervene and stop a possible rail strike from occurring because it would hurt the economy and hurt his chances at re-election. Why do I say that? Well, Biden had a very different take on a rail strike that took place in 1992. But before we get to that, here's what Biden said. I'm calling on Congress to pass legislation immediately to adopt the tentative agreement between railroad workers and operators without any modifications or delay to avert a potentially crippling national rail shutdown. Now that national rail shutdown would cost the economy $2 billion a day, and it would obviously hurt Biden's chances at getting reelected. I now take you to a tweet by More Perfect Union that shows you where Biden stood back when he didn't have re-election looming. In 1992, Senator Joe Biden voted against ending a major rail strike. He argued that by intervening, Congress would be rewarding the railroad companies for years of bad faith negotiation. Yesterday, President Biden asked Congress to intervene to prevent a rail strike. And of course, Nancy Pelosi has already raised her hand and said, yes, sir, I will serve you, and more importantly, the corporate donors. And it's not just the rail employers here. Honestly, a monopolized industry, to say the least. You have two companies on each coast, essentially, in control of the entire market. But you have all of these other industries that are concerned about a rail strike leading to supply chain issues, which would of course hurt their bottom line. And so I'll give you more details on what Pelosi said in just a moment, but Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so first, let's do the establishment Democratic response to all of this. Like, oh, you progressives don't understand anything. Did you know that it'll cost the economy $2 billion a day if this happens? Yeah, we know. They're like, oh, the nuanced position is to immediately give the corporations what they want. Is it? Is that the nuanced position? Let me flip it back on you. Did you know that Biden can force and Congress can force the companies to take the union position?
That's right, yep.
They can force it either way. Yet no one in mainstream media talks about that. They don't say, hey, why isn't Biden forcing the companies to take the position instead of forcing the unions? No Democrat other than Bernie Sanders and of course progressives in the House are making it an issue at all. Establishment Democrats are like, of course you crush the unions and you help the corporations, what do you mean? They take it as such a given that their zombie followers have no idea. To be fair to them, to be fair to the zombies, they've never heard that in their entire lives.
But they also don't care. I mean, those who provide cover for corporate Democrats who screw over workers in this country while campaigning as warriors for workers don't actually care about issues like this. They don't.
Yeah.
They just don't. They're not they think they're not impacted by it. In fact, if anything, they're probably concerned that a rail strike would lead to empty shelves during the holidays.
Oh, of course, and I'm sure that that's true, but I guarantee you that both things are true. That the people who are establishment Democrats, they're brainwashed by corporate media. They have no idea what the alternatives are. So right now, if there's an establishment Democrat watching, they're in the middle of Googling right now. Go, oh, there's no way that's true. These progressives are radicals, there's no way. And then by the way, when you're done Googling, come back and find out that we're the ones that are actually telling you the truth, okay?
Yeah.
So, okay, so why does Biden choose the companies? Because it's not a choice between do you put $2 billion hole in the economy every day, or do you come out against the workers? No, there's a third choice, come out against the company. And by the way, their position is not that far. All the workers are saying is, just give us like 3.
They want 4 paid days off. That's all they want.
They've been negotiating between 3 and 4 days off, and the company's at 1. So we're talking about a 3-day difference, basically, right? So that's so easy to make the company do that. But no one in Washington would dare to even think of making a company do something. Whereas crushing the workers, that's Tuesday. That's literally every day in Washington, yeah.
Cenk, real quick, look, the reason why I say that those who provide cover for the bad behavior of corporate Democrats don't actually care about the workers here is because look at the demographics and how they have shifted in the voting base of the Democratic Party. Who do they represent, right? Who do they mostly consist of? And they're highly educated, mostly like upper middle class individuals, right? And these are people who are more concerned about ensuring that Republicans don't have any power, which I share that concern, right? But at the same time, they're also concerned with ensuring that they provide the cover for Democrats, their holidays are nice and comfortable, they get access to whatever it is that they need to buy for gifts for friends and family. That's what they're concerned about. These are people who are so far removed from what the average worker has to deal with. They don't know what it's like to not get 3 or 4 days off for a medical emergency, a family emergency. I mean, it is insane. Some of these workers don't get a single day off, paid day off if they get sick. I'll give you examples. Tony Caldwell, president of the Brotherhood of Maintenance of Way Employees, one of the unions that voted down the agreement that had been agreed upon between the White House and the employers here, said his members will not ratify a deal unless it includes more expansive sick leave benefits. The union is asking for 4 paid sick days and has not been offered any. We're talking about 4 freaking days out of the year. In the latest negotiations last week, the rail carriers stated that they were unwilling to negotiate over sick days, Caldwell said. Okay. This country treats its workers, treats its people as if it is an undeveloped third world authoritarian country. That's how workers are treated in certain industries. And that is certainly the case when it comes to rail workers. Okay, it is a monopolized industry where on both coasts, there are only 2 companies, 2 rail companies that control everything. And so if their service sucks, what are people supposed to do? What are companies supposed to do when they need to move product across the country? What are they supposed to do? They have no choice. And over the last few years, these companies have already been cutting their workforce significantly because, hey, labor, they might need them, but labor also happens to be expensive. And they really need to cut costs to maximize profits, right? They gotta pay dividends, they gotta do corporate stock buybacks. And if having a tiny workforce is not enough to ensure that service is smooth, who cares? It's not like you've got any other options. And that's why these workers are being overworked, and that's why these workers are not being given the minimal time off that they're asking for. Because they're expected to work overtime. They're expected to make up for the fact that these companies intentionally cut their workforce because they wanted to save on money that they were paying on salaries. Because instead of paying salaries, they could use that money to do the dividends and to do the corporate stock buybacks. That is how the sausage is made in this country. And people like Joe Biden, goons like House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who love that corporate cash flowing into their coffers, oh, they will always provide cover for these corporations, for these greedy, disgusting companies that treat their workers like garbage. That's who Nancy Pelosi is. That's who Nancy Pelosi is. She'll go up there, she'll talk on the podium talking about how she cares about the children. I care about the children. I care about these people. And you don't care about anyone other than yourself, okay? The mansion you live in Northern California. I mean, the insider trading you engage in on a regular basis. That's who Nancy Pelosi is. The Democratic Party, mainstream Democratic Party, does not represent workers in this country. They used to in times past, they don't anymore. And then they wonder why young progressives don't like them.
Yeah, and of course, again, if you listen to mainstream media, you wouldn't have heard none of that. When Pelosi announced that she was stepping down from leadership, every article was master legislator, the greatest, one of the greatest legislators of all time. What an incredible working class Democratic hero. Absurd. She took over $1 billion in large money donations. She serves large money.
Yep.
Okay, that's 100%. Okay, now in this case, last two things here. Number one, the union should do something very simple, just as a matter of, at a minimum, as rhetorical framing. Hey, you know what? The companies are making some interesting points. Why don't we just take the same number of sick days as the executives have? What? Why did the executives get 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and we're allowed 0 days? Now, look, if you're asking me in reality, is that a little apples and oranges? Yeah, it's a little apples and oranges, right? But rhetorically, it's fantastic, and it sets up this incredible contrast. Wait, why does an executive get 3.5 weeks off, and the worker gets 0 days off? That doesn't make any sense at all, right? And it starts to focus the frustration on the executives as opposed to the workers, right? But that's why you'll never see it in mainstream media, because the executives are the oligarchs, and so everything is structured around serving corporate executives. By the way, they could do that on other issues too. Hey, look, you know what? I know profits are way up for the railroad companies. They made $20 billion in profits recently, so that's great news for everybody. So, well, you know what? Workers are going to be reasonable. We'll take the same percentage increase that the executives are getting. What? You guys have a problem with that? Why do you have a problem with that? That puts the onus on the executives to justify it, right? But you'll never see that anywhere in media. And by the way, that leads to the last point. You also oftentimes will not see that from union leadership. What do you see from union leadership? Surrender after surrender after surrender. When Biden says, no, let's go force the workers instead of the executives to take the deal, all union leadership should be up in arms and they should be furious. Have you seen fury? I haven't seen fury. What I see all the time from union leadership is, oh no, Joe, we got to take whatever the executives offer us and the corporations offer us, and the Democratic Party, you can't ask for anything. You just have to do whatever they tell you. Why? Why are you giving them millions? Corporations give them millions of dollars and then get everything they want. Union leadership gives them millions of dollars and gets a door slammed in their face and go, oh, we did such a great job. Did you? Did you? There's tons of discontent from people that are in unions with union leadership.
Final thing I'll say, and I'm skeptical about this, and I want to be clear, but if this were to happen, it would certainly help the Republican Party outflank Democrats in terms of being further to the left on protecting workers. Senator John Cornyn tells reporters that he thinks there could be substantial Republican support for Bernie Sanders' amendment to give rail workers more paid sick leave. He's also suggesting it could possibly pass. Schumer responded to this by saying, we're working with McConnell to try to get something done and avoid a shutdown. So look, I don't know if there really is Republican support in stepping in to protect the workers here. I'm skeptical considering the history that we've seen with Republicans looking out for corporations, certainly far more than Democrats had. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So two things about that, Anna, because that's late breaking. So number one, Josh Hawley is trying to make an end run, populist end run around the Democrats. He, on issues like this, is going more pro-workers. By the way, all politicians should be pro-workers if we lived in an actual democracy, because workers are where all the votes are, right? But they serve the rich because of our legalized bribery in the system. But can Republicans from time to time, even if they don't mean it, score giant rhetorical wins at the last second by going, hey, we're with the workers. Oh, the Democrats sold you out? Now the Republicans are gonna sell you out anyway, right?
Yep.
But at least they're smart enough to play that rhetorical trick.
Right.
And then corrupt idiot Democrats get left holding the bag going, oh, we're the elitist party that is anti-worker. Oops. But oh, that's okay, we'll just get the mainstream media. Hey, CNN, New York Times, go out there and tell people how great we are. That act is wearing thin, man. I know you guys don't get it. You live in your bubble in New York and DC, and you think you have this whole thing figured out. Polls have mainstream media polling at 7%. The country despises you and thinks your lies are full of crap. And you have to read 24 articles before you find out one that says, oh, by the way, they could force the companies to take a deal just as much as they could force the workers to take a deal.
Yeah, and when it comes to anything having to do with labor, do not rely on corporate press. Labor
They will
knows,
lie to you.
They will.
Flat
they
out
will.
lie to you.
They'll either
They
lie to you or they'll withhold information from you.
Yeah, it's lying by omission. 100%. It's all in the framing. If you're watching somebody on cable news, they're almost certainly lying to you.
All right, let's move on to the break, because the next story has a billion videos in it. It is, yes, the Kanye West appearance on Tim Pool's show. We've got a lot of thoughts about it, a lot of highlights or lowlights to share with you. Stick around. We'll be back with that and more.
I am Warhol.
On the 9th day of 9 days of impact on TYT.
Oh my God.
We gave away money to the Committee to Protect Journalists. Okay, so today, if you buy something at shoptyt.com, $3 is gonna go for every $30 order, $5 for every $50 order, $10 for every $100 order. You can see it. It'll be donated to the Committee to Protect Journalists. We like to give away money here. It is kind of weird. We give away a lot of money. We're leftists. So we're doing it for good causes instead of doing stuff like Black Friday. So check it out, take advantage, and help that organization, which is essential in places where freedom of the press is challenged, including America. And don't forget, on December 6th, we are doing the Georgia runoff. Walker versus Warnoff. We'll be covering it right after the Young Turks. So stay right here at 8 o'clock Eastern on December 6th. And now that I'm throwing out dates, December 9th is when we release the TYT 20th anniversary documentary just for the members, okay? It's called We Move Generations. That sounds pretty badass. TYT.com/join to become a member and check out all that extra content for you guys. Love Doctor 7277 writes in on our member section. It's okay for Congress to take money to enrich themselves, but not for the workers. Of course, Nancy Pelosi buried the Stock Act so she can continue her insider trading. But when it comes to the workers, no sick days for you. The Dragon Who Says Niece asks, who's only sick for one day? Hey, that's a good question in a whole year, not me. Psych Dragon asks, so why not threaten the rail companies with nationalizing unless they give the workers what they're asking for? Nah, he'd rather kiss corporate feet. Of course, and again, look, when we go to primaries, not one older voter that watches TV will know any of these facts. And so when you say, hey, Biden could have actually forced the companies to take the deal, they'll think you don't know what you're talking about. That's how brainwashed they are. Connor the Emerald Dragon says, if Biden and Dems really cared, they could seize the messaging and point out the workers' grievances the same way they could with inflation and the necessity of a windfall tax. But of course, they'll just cave because A, the donors, and B, it would require them to actually push back against the GOP. Look, right now, because Cornyn is doing, whether it's a rhetorical trick or not, they don't even have to push back against the GOP. Cornyn is giving them an opening. He's taunting them, right? That's the number 2 Republican in the Senate. So Biden can jump on and go, I'll take the Cornyn deal. We're gonna support the workers and make the corporation take the union deal. And he would get tremendous credit from workers and from the average American, tremendous credit. Will he do it? Of course not, because he doesn't actually agree with us. He agrees with corporations 100% every time. Collective Miscellanea writes in, remember when the media was painting Biden as the new FDR? FDR, I don't know whether to laugh or cry about it. 100% horse crap. By the way, a lot of progressive organizations went along with that horse crap. All right, back on TYT, Jake and Anna with you guys. Anna told me not to encourage her, but Lizetta did write in the YouTube member section, "Go off, Salt Queen." So there's someone encouraging her. Okay.
Thank you for that.
All right.
But you don't want me to go off.
Well, yeah, I don't know about them. They might want it. Okay, all right.
Anyway, let's get to Tim Pool. Let's go.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about, are you leaving?
Are you referring to the press?
He's gone.
Tim Pool hosting notorious anti-Semites and racists like Kanye West and Nick Fuentes wasn't the win that he was hoping it would be. Kanye walked out of the show after Tim Pool barely pushed back kind of on some of his anti-Semitism. But he also spent some time sucking up to his hateful dweebs, and I wanna give you some examples of that. So why don't we take a look at the first video?
Before the show, obviously, I'm getting a bunch of messages from people. People are hitting me up and they're like, you shouldn't host them. They're anti-Semitic, they're white supremacists, they're racist. I do find the idea, I do find it funny or weird or whatever that, Nick, they call you a white supremacist. You're here working with or for, one of the most powerful black men, one of the wealthiest and most famous. But a lot of people were saying on the right, specifically, don't platform them. And I said, well, I want to understand what they're thinking and why they're thinking it. They're involved in what may be the biggest news story of the past week, and we have an opportunity to sit down and talk.
Because the red media controls both sides. It just said it as simple as possible. Jared Kushner was next to Trump. Ron Emanuel was next to Obama.
So I just wanted to play that first to give you a sense of what Tim Pool's pushback, what his challenging questions sound like. Challenging comments at like, Nick, I can't believe people call you racist. You're advising Kanye West. Would a racist do that? Good job laundering the reputation of a well-known anti-Semite and racist. Good job. You did a great job there. Fantastic.
Yeah. So Fuentes is over the top racist. We showed you clips yesterday on the show. I can't do it justice, but among the things he said is the military should occupy black parts of town. Blacks can't rule themselves; they're inferior. It goes on and on. He's not subtle. There's no code words. He's just a flat out, outright racist white supremacist. It's not within bounds. And then what does Tim Pool do? He said, "Well, you're working with a black man who also thinks wears White Lives Matter shirts, says so, is an infinitely stupid man who's mentally ill, pushing white supremacist agenda. So you found a lackey." Right. To do the same, say the same things you are while being black. And Tim Pool launders that to, well, obviously you're not racist, Fuentes.
Some of your best friends are black, right?
Yeah. And by the way, when he said that, Fuentes' face was funny.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, of course you're not racist. He's like, he seemed offended that he was being called not racist.
Now later, Pool tells Kanye that he feels the corporate press has been incredibly unfair to him. But apparently that level of ass kissing wasn't enough for Kanye. So why don't we take a look at how that worked out for Tim Pool?
I think they've been extremely unfair to you.
Who is they though? We can't say they is,
corporate
can we?
Press. I'm not using I don't use the word as the way I guess you guys use. I'm talking about.
It is them though, isn't it? Because because when you think about it, consider it. In 2018.
What do you mean it's not?
What do I mean? Like, okay, so how about? Are you leaving?
Are you referring to the press?
He's gone. I'll say it right now. You guys want to bring that stuff up, and then think we're not going to have a conversation.
Have the discussion.
You think he's going to come in here and say, "Here's my pain, here's my suffering." I'm going to say, "I hear you," and then he's going to say, "And it was Jewish people," and I'm going to be like, "Okay, but don't you consider?" It's like, I'm not going to do this. I refuse.
Make sure he's cool.
All right, go for it. Luke and I will have a conversation.
Okay, so Jake, I know you've got a lot to say about that particular clip and the cowardice that's displayed there, the snowflake behavior that we see from Kanye, who can't even handle like the lightest disagreement imaginable, okay? But what did you think was gonna happen, Tim?
Yeah, you idiot.
Did you think you were gonna have an exchange of ideas and Kanye, who has a obvious mental health issue and has said obvious anti-Semitic things. You think the media's been unfair to him? What exactly, I want to know, Tim. I really want Tim to answer this question, okay? I want Tim to tell me what exactly a person needs to say, verbalize, for you to admit or agree that that's anti-Semitic. On 2 different occasions, in the 20 minutes that Kanye West was on the show, he repeated, Jared Kushner right next to Donald Trump, Rahm Emanuel right next to Obama. See? Like they're being controlled by Jewish people, right? Like that's what he's trying to say. He said that twice in the 20 minutes that what exactly does he need to say, Tim? Tell me what he needs to say.
Because it's not coded. He's not coding it.
No, not at all.
Like in the old days, there's I have a quote in my upcoming book from Lee Atwater about this. He's like, we used to say the N-word and then it became politically damaging. So we started using code words, and he explained the different layers of the code words. Now Trump and Kanye and others have taken the code words away. Nick Fuentes doesn't use any code words. He just says they're inferior, we're superior, we should control them and lock them up, etc. Kanye doesn't use any code words. He's like, the Jews control the media, the Jews control everyone, they control Trump, they control Obama. Look, that's the definition of anti-Semitism. Look, I mean, I don't know what you want to call a fascist, a Nazi, an anti-Semite. I don't know that there's giant distinctions there. And if you guys say, no, the distinction is, no, Nazis actually kill the Jews, whereas the anti-Semites and the fascists,
they just fantasize about it.
They just encourage others to kill the Jews. I don't know what your distinction is. But me, I don't have a distinction on that. I think Kanye West is a Nazi. So you invite, and then Nick Fuentes is a Nazi. So you invited a couple of Nazis on your show. Tim, when you do that, you're supposed to rip their face off. And he looked genuinely surprised and hurt that Kanye was leaving.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, he said, oh no, my star, the one that's giving me all this attention is leaving. Oh, what if the money leaves with him? Oh my God.
No.
You bitch.
100%.
Get man up.
No.
Do a real goddamn interview, you loser.
No, it is an insult to bitches to call Tim Pool a bitch. I'm just saying, okay? The other thing that I'll just note is all we hear from right wingers, including Tim Pool, and yes, you piece of garbage, you're a right winger, your little grift of I'm actually a centrist who provides cover for anti-Semites. Yeah, we're not buying it. But we can't go a day without hearing from right wingers defaming innocent people as groomers, as pedophiles, as dangerous individuals, whether we're talking about medical professionals, whether we're talking about educators. It's just endless, nonstop defamation of innocent people. But you invited someone who tried to make a case for pedophilia into your studio to have a nice, delightful conversation. Milo Yiannopoulos sitting right there. You didn't bother to ask a single question about his comments related to pedophilia, correct? Because you guys don't actually give a damn about pedophilia. The only time they care is when they can inaccurately label their political opponents groomers or sexual predators for political brownie points. That's what they do. That's who they are.
Milo was viciously racist, and no one in the right wing minded at all. That's not why he got driven from the right wing. He got driven from the right wing because he said that he didn't think there was anything wrong with older men, like literally grooming younger boys for relationships. I mean, that's textbook pedophilia. So Tim Pool has maybe one of the most renowned groomers or pro-groomer advocate in the room with him, doesn't ask a single question. Because they don't mind groomers, they love it. They're the world's biggest hypocrites. So, and by the way, if you notice, Tim Pool said when Kanye was referring to Jewish people, he said, I don't use the word. He's like, in other words, I agree with you on the press, I just don't use the word Jewish, because he's got to have plausible deniability. Anyway, I don't care if Tim Pool's an anti-Semite or not. I don't care. Okay, by the way, I don't mind platforming as long as you actually hit him, right? Instead, he comes in, he's like, oh, the press has been so unfair to you. You're halfway up the Nazi's ass. Is that the kind of interview you do? But I want to say one more thing about Kanye. I mean, you want to talk about bitches. So this guy, I mean, Tim Pool's sitting there slobbering all over you. But because he wouldn't say the Jews did it, exactly when you demanded that he say it, you walk out, you're that fragile.
Yeah, he is.
This guy walks around pretending to be a tough guy. Oh, it's the Jews, I'm so strong and brave. Oh, it's the Jews, hate. I'm so strong and masculine. My ass you are. You're the weakest bitch in America. The minute anybody criticizes you 1%, Your hateful ass all of a sudden catches feelings. You're like, oh my God, I've been offended. Look at what you're saying about Jewish people. And you think they shouldn't be offended, but you're offended because someone else wouldn't be as anti-Semitic as you are. And you think that gives you the right to walk away. Kanye, unbearable. I've never been more right than when I said, how many years ago now? 5 years ago, that Kanye was the dumbest man in America.
Well, I mean, the other thing I'll say about Kanye, and it came up repeatedly, again, during the 20 minutes he was on the show. He kept talking about how he was debanked, how he was, and look, this is my speculation, but it seems like he hasn't paid his taxes.
No, it's not speculation, he said it.
Yeah, I mean, he said it, but he says all sorts of insane things, right? But he didn't say, I didn't pay my taxes. He talked about his bank accounts being frozen, and because you haven't paid your taxes. You haven't paid your taxes. That's not the so-called Jews coming after you. That's you thinking that you get to be treated completely differently from everyone else, that you get to dodge your taxes, not pay what you owe the federal government. And then when there are consequences, you get upset about it and then launch into some insane anti-Semitic conspiracy about your bank accounts being frozen. He talks about how, they want to send me to jail. He claims they want to send him to jail over his comments.
No, but he explained that his accountant told him that he owes $50 million in taxes. Yeah, if you don't pay your taxes, ask Wesley Snipes, you go to jail. Okay, that doesn't have anything to do with the Jews. That has to do with you being a moron and a thief. Pay your goddamn taxes, then you won't have to worry about any of this. He's like, oh, what? I have to pay taxes like the average man? No, the average man should pay all of his taxes, even though he earns what? 1% of 1% of 1% of what I earn? We should take all that money from him, but I should be above the law and not pay taxes. And if you try to make me pay taxes, it's the Jews. No, you moron, it's you. I hope you do wind up in jail. I pay my taxes, why don't you pay them, huh? Goddamn criminal.
All right, the other thing I really want to bring up is after Kanye had already walked out, Tim Pool told on himself. Because apparently he was planning this conversation in a way that would have protected Kanye to some extent. And he discloses that. Let's take a look at what I mean and then we'll discuss.
I said, this is gonna be a big issue. Before the show, obviously people are gonna bring up the questions of anti-Semitism. Why don't we talk about the news? I wanna hear what happened with this meeting. I wanna understand what Ye 24 is, and then we can do a longer conversation about any of that stuff. And Ye literally in the first 5 minutes says, no, I wanna talk about a group of people and point to them. Whatever, man. You wanna know why? Look, you're not gonna sit here and you're gonna walk out of the room. You're free to do so, man. But literally I said a couple sentences about, I don't think that's fair. Did I insult the man?
I wanted you to promote your laughable presidential campaign. I wanted to talk about the news of the day with you. And then maybe later we'll get to that whole anti-Semitic thing. Maybe I'll ask you about that. I mean,
look, these guys.
It's so obvious.
Every one of these ghouls and goblins tell on themselves nonstop. Back to the IRS thing, Kanye said in that segment, he's like, I don't understand numbers. So they were telling me, you claim you're a genius and you don't understand numbers.
Cenk, he used to think he was more like Malcolm X, but then he found out he's more like MLK.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, I got news for you. You're more like a dumbass. Dumb. Kanye is dumb. Okay, get it through your thick skull, Kanye. Everyone around you is an ass kisser who's looking to rob you of your money because they think this is the dumbest guy in America. It's so easy to take money from him, and none of them are Jewish. It's all your best friends that are probably robbing you blind because they think this guy's so stupid. He doesn't understand numbers. Go ahead, be more anti-Semitic, you coward, you loser, you idiot.
All right, well, let's move on to a different angle to the story, and it has to do with the dinner that Trump had with Fuentes and Kanye West. NBC News is reporting that the anti-Semites who Trump dined with, including Nick Fuentes and Kanye West, were actually setting him up, trolling him. At least that's what the anti-Semites claim. Now, do we buy it? let's get to the details and we'll figure this all out. Now, Trump received a lot of backlash, as we know, for having this dinner with these anti-Semites in the first place, and he immediately jumped to damage control. Now, Nick Fuentes, though, says this about the dinner. He told this to NBC News, quote, "We saw everybody in the dining room get up and start applauding, and then the president entered. He greeted us and he invited Ye into dinner, and Ye said he wanted to bring us with him to the table. So we walked in and Ye took some pictures with some of the guests in the dining room, and then we sat down at the table." Now, Trump apparently, according to this NBC News report, made sure they sat at his specially reserved table on the patio for all to see, according to Fuentes. Okay, well, we all saw, so congratulations on that. Trump advisors, though, who spoke to NBC, think that this is all part of a setup. Okay, so one longtime Trump advisor who doesn't have, the cojones to go on record, who didn't want to go on the record criticizing his preferred candidate, said it was clear that Fuentes' presence was part of a headline-grabbing setup. The master troll got trolled, the advisor said. Kanye punked Trump. And that's your preferred candidate, the guy who got punked by Kanye West and Nick Fuentes? Okay, let me continue. As advisors to Trump have attempted to quell the backlash, some have insisted that the former president was essentially tricked by the rapper and his guests, a suspicion backed by Milo Yiannopoulos, the anti-Trump far-right provocateur who is now acting as a political advisor to Ye. Yeah, someone who defended pedophilia, serving as a political advisor. Great decision there. Now, Yiannopoulos said that he was the, quote, architect of the plan to have Fuentes travel with Ye in the hopes of slipping him into the dinner with Trump. The intent, according to Yiannopoulos, was for Fuentes to give Trump an unvarnished view of how a portion of his base views his candidacy. And so how do they view his candidacy? Yiannopoulos told NBC News this: "I wanted to show Trump the kind of talent that he's missing out on by allowing his terrible handlers to dictate who he can and can't hang out with. I also wanted to send a message to Trump that he has systematically, repeatedly neglected, ignored, abused the people who love him the most, the people who put him in office. And that kind of behavior comes back to bite you in the end." So more details on this, but I'm dying to know, Cenk, are you buying this? Do you think that this was a setup to troll Trump?
So I'm not buying it 1%, not at all. Okay, but I agree with Anna. If it was true, then Trump is even dumber. So your Trump advisors are putting out to NBC News of all places, okay, saying, now remember, our boss is an idiot and didn't do any fact checking of who he was having dinner with, even though he's a former president of the United States and currently running for president. And he got tricked by Kanye West, who is obviously one of the dumbest people in the country. I mean, Kanye West in the Tim Pool interview said he doesn't understand numbers. Okay, so you got tricked by that guy? You got tricked by that guy, by the village idiot, right? And so how does that help your cause? But the reason I don't believe it is because Kanye is the village idiot. And so the idea of him tricking anyone, I mean, tricking Kanye West, the guy is like IQ is 7. It's not in the double digits. If you told him, hey, let's go trick, he wouldn't even understand what you're talking about. He's one of the most painfully stupid people I've ever seen in public life.
Well, Milo's claiming he's the architect of
this. Okay, that's a little bit more believable. Milo is an evil guy, but not quite as dumb as Kanye or Trump, okay?
Dumb enough to defend pedophilia on Rogan's podcast, but I digress.
Which did get him banished until now, and Kanye's brought him back, and Trump has brought him back. Congratulations, you guys must be so proud, okay? And it does go along with the right wing promoting groomers, which, I mean, that's why Milo got driven out, because he did a pro-groomer segment on Rogan, okay? So anyways, but back to the so-called trick. How is this a trick? So you get Trump to seem like he's in cahoots with you guys. How are you going to win? How does that make you more popular? How does that make him less popular? Is the trick, we got you to be as unpopular as us, and that's why we're gonna win the election against you? That doesn't make any sense at all.
So Yiannopoulos said he arranged the dinner, quote, just to make Trump's life miserable because news of the dinner would leak and Trump would mishandle it. No, this is so fun. So Milo is saying, we acknowledge that we are such awful, terrible people that this would lead to backlash for Trump. And so we ensured that the awful Nick Fuentes was at this dinner so Trump would get the backlash and he'd mishandle it. Like the admission, the inherent admission there that's baked in is incredible.
That's a brilliant point by Anna. But like, it's amazing to me that people don't understand concepts like that. So Milo is saying by definition, we're so toxic that even being in the same room as us will do tremendous damage to you. And that's why we're gonna win the election?
Amazing.
And remember, Milo is now Kanye's campaign manager. So he thinks this is gonna help Kanye. But remember, there is one person in the room that is actually playing everyone, and it is Milo. Does he think Kanye can win? Of course not, of course not. Does he know that as a guy who was a pedophilia advocate, he's not going to be the campaign manager for the winning presidential candidate? Of course. Does he? I mean, literally, he has a pedophile advocate, a racist, and an anti-Semite walk into a meeting with Trump.
Yep.
Right? But I think that all Milo's doing is trying to get back in the game. And
1000%, yes.
And so he's not just burning Trump, he's burning Kanye.
He doesn't care.
And he doesn't care at all. But to be fair to Milo, I mean, look, who wouldn't rob Kanye? And who wouldn't rob Trump? They're the two dumbest people in America.
You know who wouldn't? People like us.
I know, because we're too moral. But I tell you, look, given all the terrible things that they've done, put me in a room with them. I'll walk out with $1 billion before you know what hit you.
If he has $1 billion.
Yeah, well, I mean, neither one of them do, actually. That's the problem.
I mean, I don't know if you heard, Kanye says that Jewish people froze his bank accounts after he didn't pay his taxes.
What a moron. What a moron. Doesn't understand anything in the world.
Now, final part about this is Trump's reaction, okay? Because apparently Trump fumed afterward because he felt that Ye had betrayed him by ambushing him with Nick Fuentes at this dinner. And he said, quote, he tried to F me. He's crazy, he can't beat me, Trump said, according to one confidant who then relayed the conversation to NBC News on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. So look, this wouldn't stand up in a court of law, that's hearsay. But do I think Trump said it? Yeah, I do. Especially that one part, he can't beat me.
100%, Anna. See, that's why mainstream media drives me crazy. And this is not even about politics. Like, do you guys not understand what Trump is mad about? Trump isn't mad that Kanye is an anti-Semite. He's declared after dinner that he had said nothing anti-Semitic. He isn't mad that Fuentes is racist. He never denounced Fuentes at all, right? He's had 1,000 opportunities. It's been a week. He still hasn't denounced Fuentes. He hasn't denounced Milo. He hasn't denounced any of them. Okay, so the thing that Trump is upset about is that Kanye asked him to be his VP. You have two dum-dums talking to one another. They both live in a completely alternate realities. And Kanye is like, okay, I'm so obviously gonna become president. Trump, do you wanna be my VP? And Trump, meanwhile, is like, oh, how dare you? Why, because he's anti-Semitic and your daughter and he's like, how dare you think you're above me? That's what Trump's upset about.
It's amazing.
He said it, it's in the quote in the story. Yet news writes it as Trump upset that he got punked by and didn't know that these guys were racist and anti-Semitic. Then why are you running cover for him? That's not what he said at all. He was upset because Kanye had a bigger ego than him.
It's amazing, it really is. All right, sedition when we come back from the break, don't miss it.
All right, lots of wonderful comments. Let's start on Super Chat. Kurt Million writes in, hey, Cenk, Anna, JR, John, and all the rest. I love and share your stuff to everyone I know. Keep doing the great work you do. So glad I stumbled on your channel a year ago. Thank you. We super appreciate it. Guys, look, being a member is great. There's so many other ways that you could be part of the show and make a bit difference. But just doing the, like just sharing a video, sharing the live stream, makes a giant difference. So thank you for doing that. I love that you do that, because at a minimum, you spread the message about not just the progressive message, but things that are actually true, as opposed to the crap that you see all over the rest of media. All right, let's go to YouTube members. Ryan D says, let's all meet in the bad faith room for a clickbaity interview.
Yes.
Perfect description of what just happened. Exactly right. Boondocks Dragon says, Tim, quote, someone peed in my gene pool. Okay. Kind of amused by that for no reason. Okay. Marco Antonio writes, Anna rocking that sweater.
It's a new sweater. It is.
It's a new sweater.
And it's a great color on me, I will admit.
Okay, well, it is what it is, and it's a fall color.
It's a nice mock neck, you know.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the mock neck.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently. You go clubbing in them.
I do.
Venture Fanatic says Biden going the Reagan way from back in the 80s with the air traffic controllers. Edwin's not in the studio today, but he texted me since he's the smartest guy at the company. Anyway, he's like, nobody remembers that you could actually rule against the company too in situations like this, because Reagan fired all the air traffic controllers. In the popular imagination, all that anybody remembers, and then corporate media helps us along, is that you can fire all the workers, that the president has the ability to do that. That's true. What they don't tell you is he also has the ability to make the company take the deal. That's because since 1978, we've had nothing but corporate presidents, except Trump in his own deranged way. Ahmad Ghazi said, just came home from watching my country, Netherlands, destroy Qatar. Next on the menu, USA. Yeah, I know, America's gonna play Netherlands in the next round. Be careful what you wish for. America's, for the first time in my life, America's a pretty damn good team.
Yeah, can I just say, there have been a few moments this year in particular where I really, really understood my deep love for this country. Yeah, that's it, that's all I'll say.
Yeah.
Like, because I was watching, it was on in the background as I was working. And when they did the goal,
yeah.
Is that what it's called, doing the goal, or is it kicking the goal, or whatever? Anyway, I felt so proud and so happy, and I was like, oh my God, am I like veering into jingoist territory?
Just ask Polish LARPers how patriotic
yeah, those
you are.
Polish LARPers, I'm still mad about it.
Imagine if we played Poland in one of these rounds.
Oh, I'd be so into it.
Anyway, I'm telling you, the Dutch, you better be careful. This is a very different team than other American teams. All right, the Electricians writes in on Twitch, is Tim Pool so dumb that he thinks he can have a rational conversation with Kanye? No, he doesn't care about a rational conversation. He just wanted the spotlight on him. And in that regard, mission accomplished. Back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Charles Ward and Joseph McCrae with you guys. Charles and Joseph, you guys are awesome. You're American heroes. Thank you for joining us. They hit the join button below the video on YouTube, but if you're on an iPhone or any kind of phone, you scroll down a little further to see the join button. Everybody else, tyt.com/join, and you know we're giving away $100 gift cards left and right for our members. All right, Anna.
2 members of the Oath Keepers have just been convicted for sedition. In fact, the founder of Oath Keepers, his name is Stuart Rhodes, and one other member, Kelly Meggs, have been found guilty of seditious conspiracy in connection with the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. Now, for those who might have missed some of the details in the story leading up to this moment, I'll fill you in, starting with who Stuart Rhodes is and what he did. Now, Rhodes is the founder of the right-wing Oath Keepers, which is a militia group, which I prefer to call a right-wing gang. And he's been found guilty of seditious conspiracy, a charge arising from the attack on the US Capitol by supporters of Donald Trump. Rhodes's 4 co-defendants were Kelly Meggs, I should say, who was also found guilty, Kenneth Harrelson, Jessica Watkins, and Thomas Caldwell. Meggs was convicted of seditious conspiracy, but the rest were acquitted. Now, how much time do they face in prison? Remember, they have not been sentenced yet. They've just been found guilty by a federal jury. They face up to 20 years in prison. Rhodes and Meggs, who were also charged alongside all the other people I mentioned earlier, are among the first Americans to be convicted of treason-related charges in decades. In fact, the last time anyone was charged with treason in the United States was back in 2010, but that individual was not convicted of that charge. So that was a DOJ charge against an individual and a militia member in Michigan. But again, that person was not convicted of the charge. Moving on, what did they do? Well, according to The Independent, Rhodes and his allies spent weeks discussing a violent response to the 2020 election on encrypted, not encrypted enough apparently, messaging apps, then organized a weapons and supply cache at a nearby hotel before joining the mob that broke through the Capitol's doors and windows to storm the halls of Congress and block the certification of Joe Biden's presidency, according to federal prosecutors. So the prosecutors had those messages, which of course they provided as evidence to the jury. And it was certainly convincing enough for the jury to find these 2 individuals guilty. Prosecutors also fell shy of saying that they had plans to enter the Capitol, but they did argue that they conspired to commit an act of treason. Attorneys for the Oath Keepers, though, say, no, those messages are no biggie. They were just boastful and attorneys for the Oath Keepers claimed that the mountains of text messages and video evidence putting their violent rhetoric on display was their own frustrated bombast and not an actual threat. And the jury disagreed.
The reason they disagreed is because they carried out the threat.
Yeah, exactly.
They actually entered the building, broke in, and had all those things. But actually, so I read a very long piece, and then I interviewed the guy who wrote the piece about Stewart Rhodes. And so I know a little bit of detail about him. And he's an interesting cat. He's actually relatively intelligent, but my assessment is that he's got mental health issues, which I think a lot of the right-wing leaders do, honestly. And so in this case, he had several significant problems. One was that he accidentally admitted the whole plot, right? And the reason he admitted the whole plot is because he genuinely thought it was okay. So let me explain. So they had stashed away a lot of weapons in the hotels, and they were gonna go in, and they thought that Trump was gonna go with them to the Capitol. They were gonna barge into the Capitol, and then they were gonna declare Trump the actual president, and president-elect again. Of course, at the time he was the president, and that Trump was then going to declare them an official militia. So he drank his own Kool-Aid. That's not a thing, but he genuinely believed it was a thing. And he believed that Trump was gonna do all these things. That's why if you've seen in some of his interviews afterwards, he's like genuinely shocked and really like heartbroken that Trump didn't do any of the things that he said he was gonna do, right?
Oh my God.
He's like, why didn't he declare us a militia? Then it would have been official. Why didn't this and this happen? Why didn't he walk with us to the Capitol? No, he's a con man. You're his mark. And he didn't get that. And so he walked right into it and he told the authorities, oh yeah, we had the weapons over there, we didn't use them. We were waiting to be declared a militia.
Can we, look, I know this seems out of left field, but I gotta say it because it's on my mind every time we deal with stories involving individuals who might have mental health issues. Just one policy change in this country could really have a lasting impact on all the issues we talk about on this show regularly. Medicare for all. If everyone in this country could get the health care that they need, including mental health care that they need, maybe they wouldn't be victims to lies from con men.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
I do, and so I've been trying to figure out why does the right wing have a proclivity to follow people who are not mentally well? And I'm not trying to be like, ha, and I've done that plenty of times in the past. I'm not trying to troll you. It's a real thing, okay? So Trump is obviously has significant mental health issues. He's a narcissist beyond anything anybody's ever seen. Sociopath, cannot relate to any other individual. Kanye West is obviously not mentally well. Roseanne Barr back in the day.
Roseanne.
What was that?
Roseanne Barr.
Okay, the French version of Roseanne Barr. Roseanne Barr. Anyway, Roseanne Barr, Ted Nugent, Glenn Beck has admitted that he goes on a gyroscope to try to heal his mental health issues. I mean, you go down the whole list, a shockingly high percentage of right-wing leaders have either are obviously mentally unwell or have admitted to being mentally unwell, right? And Kanye said, I went off my medication, and then still people love them, right? And I think it's because people who have that kind of mental health issue, it comes packaged with this grandiose view of themselves. So I've known people in my personal life, and people who were really sick. And then one guy got really sick and he thought he was Muhammad, risen, right?
Wow.
And so that these guys, they might not, but Kanye does say it. He says he's Jesus. He says he's Martin Luther King. He says these guys, so that's why they act out and they act like alphas, like fake alphas, obviously, right? Obviously the rest of us. And they're like, I'm the greatest thing ever, and you should all hate those guys, right? Because they're not well. But unfortunately for the right-wing mind, that's really alluring. They are looking for some really strong person to blame someone else for their problems. And so mental health problems is actually kind of a bonus for right-wing leaders. It's a huge advantage for them. So I come back to Stewart Rhodes. The guy's now going to prison for a long time for treason. Why did people follow him? He set up this Oath Keepers. He was the leader and they all worshiped him. Because same kind of thing, we're gonna take down the US government. We're gonna bring back real America where white people rule with weapons. And people are like, ah. And the right wing loved it.
I think one of the most powerful things, one of the most powerful urges that humans have is the urge to live a life of purpose. And in our current state, as workers experience the precarious nature of being a worker, the instability, the lack of power, they look for purpose elsewhere. And I think that's part of it as well. I think that they want to feel that they're having a lasting impact on this country. So that's part of it too. I think that's mixed into this toxic stew where people are getting manipulated. They're destroying their own lives by being manipulated by these con men, by these phony pretend strong men. And yeah, it's not only putting themselves and their families at a massive disadvantage because it destroys their lives, but it hurts the country. It really does. So I don't know what the answer is. We're in this mess and it's incredible. Like I remember when Trump won in 2016, I was like, all right, well, this is not good. But all people need is a year of his leadership to see that he was a fraud, right? That he never even bothered to talk about policy on the campaign trail. And if he did mention policy, he didn't actually get detailed about how he would accomplish the policies that he claimed that he would accomplish. But no, as the years went on, his base fell more and more in love with him. And I still struggle to explain it considering how much he actually hurt them in a lot of ways. Like the farmers whose livelihoods were destroyed by Trump's weird, aimless trade war, right? Like, it's just, I don't get it, but yeah, I don't know.
So a lot of great points in there. So last couple of things here. Stewart Rhodes was not a con man. He was a true believer, right? Donald Trump is a con man. There's a giant difference, right? Kanye is a true believer in himself, right? In a way that is mentally unhealthy, right? But so the reason I'm telling you that difference is because con men like Trump come in and they take advantage of a couple of things that Anna talked about. I mentioned they need leadership. They really, I mean, Trump's best line was when he said about banning Muslims, he said, we got to ban them from the country until we know what the hell is going on. And that's a perfect description of the right wing. They don't know what the hell's going on. So they're just like, let's ban people that don't look like us until we figure out what the hell's going on, right? So they're desperate for leadership. They don't know what's going on. They're also, he weaponizes their insecurity and their need for purpose that Anna pointed out, right? And he takes all that and goes, perfect, exactly the mark I was looking for. These suckers and losers will give me anything I want. They'll give me money, they'll give me power, they'll give me fame, and he uses them. That's why a guy like Trump is actually, in my opinion, infinitely worse than a guy like Stuart Rhodes, who, even though Stuart Rhodes is dangerous and did do these things and should be punished, got suckered by a guy like Trump.
People like Stuart Rhodes just serve as pawns for people like Trump.
Yes, he's a pawn. Maybe at best, in his best day, he's a bishop, but overall, because he's leading others. But look, where did he lead you? He led you into a disaster, and now you're going to serve long prison sentences, which you deserve, okay? Because America was never your enemy. Ironically, it was the guys who wanted to take advantage of you, the guys who actually are your enemy, who convinced you to attack the country that you thought you loved. But you just went down this dark, dark path. Guys, do not listen to guys telling you how they've got it all figured out and you need to attack people and you need to give them money, you need to do all these things for them, but they never have to do anything for you. Trump's never delivered for a single human being on his side ever. In fact, that's our very next story.
Yes, but we do have to take a break first. So let's do that. When we come back, we're gonna talk about some former politicians who are speaking out against Donald Trump because loyalty only goes one way. They finally realized that once they had no power. And then later we'll talk about how Trump is upset with the federal judges and Supreme Court justices he appointed because they're not serving him as his personal defense attorney. So we've got that and more coming up. Don't miss it. We'll be right back.
You know what the progressive movement needs? It needs a little energy, a little pizzazz, maybe a little caffeine. Oh, coffee. But what if it was Too Strong Coffee? Yes, new, toostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Look, this helps progressive causes. It's also organic and fair trade, so you've got peace of mind that it was done right, and it happens to taste great. So check it out right now at toostrongcoffee.com/TYT.
300 million is a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day.
We looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone, 20 billion views.
Damn.
Look closely, really closely, at a place that's been purposely left behind and a crisis that's been left purposely unsolved.
You have multiple problems. One, you can't drink the damn water. Two, the water pressure is gone. You can't even flush the damn toilet.
Through our partnership with the National Clean Water Collective, we're going to be there with clean water and testing kits for the residents, for our friends, and for the people. For those who are the farthest to reach and the furthest from help.
An American city still does not have clean water to drink. When your house is on fire, nobody needs an arson investigator. You need a person with a fire hose. And we need your help. So I encourage you to connect to the people of Jackson and do what you can.
Will you stand with us? Go to tyt.com/relief to make your contribution for clean water and testing kits. And let's work together to help solve this problem.
All right, let me do a little quick plug here. It's not even a plug, I'm bragging, okay? I'm bragging, watch me. We have a channel on YouTube, a whole channel devoted just to the Young Turks. It's badass, right?
Wow, man.
I can see the voice.
You guys are rock stars.
Unbelievable, Senator Sanders. Welcome to Rebel Headquarters. Man, you guys are amazing. We gave you what you wanted. Okay. Speaking of shirts.
I have a surprise.
You reached a lot of people. You are the Young Turks. And we have spread that progressive message wide and far. Let's keep it going.
Here's what we do. We go beyond the headline. We are willing to engage in transparent conversations with those who do not think like me. We also make sure that you know what's happening not only nationally, but in your local area. Make sure you tune in to Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, Monday through Friday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time.
Cool news, shoptyt.com now has books. There's a whole bunch of books there. You're gonna be shocked to find out that they're largely progressive. Of course! Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People, is there. It's a fantastic story from Jesse Jackson to Bernie Sanders to AOC that explains the progressive movement probably better than any book I've ever read. Speaking of awesome books, my dad's got a book out called The Original Young Turk, where he goes from the poorest olive farmer you ever met in your life to living the American dream.
I think they should stop picking on Elon Musk.
Wrong. Elon.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, and Deborah Wheatley. Deborah just joined and became an American hero. Deborah, great to have you with us. Everybody, tyt.com/join. Giving away $100 Blue Apron gift cards left and right, including 100 of them on Friday. So make sure you remember before then. All right, Casper.
The list of Trump lapdogs who have now turned on him just keeps growing. But it is notable that the individuals who are finally speaking out against Trump really have nothing to lose. Now, the latest to join that list is a former Republican representative, Lou Barletta. And Barletta was one of Trump's earliest allies in the House, and he also co-chaired Trump's 2016 campaign in Pennsylvania. During his final term in office, though, he enthusiastically supported Trump and his policies, and then decided, I want to run for governor in Pennsylvania. That's what he wanted to do. And I'm hoping that the man that I've been so loyal to endorses me, but that's not what Trump did. Trump did the opposite.
Of course.
Now, on Sunday, Barletta decided to slam Trump in an interview with Politico, where he said, quote, "I'm not supporting him. I was one of his most loyal supporters in Congress, but loyalty was only a one-way street." So when he left Congress in 2019 and ran for governor in Pennsylvania, Trump decided, I'm gonna go ahead and endorse, of course, Doug Mastriano. Doug Mastriano lost, but nonetheless, I love to see it. And he also just gently critiqued Trump on the campaign trail. And I'm talking about Barletta here. So let's take a quick look at that video and I'll fill you in on more.
There's no denying there was another big endorsement by President Trump. And I want to say this loud and clear to President Trump. You are dead wrong, and I'm going to prove it on Tuesday. And I'm going to say that.
He went on to lose the Republican primary for that gubernatorial race in Pennsylvania, and then Doug Mastriano ended up losing the general election. But there is another former Republican who lambasted Trump. I'll get to him in just a moment. But Cenk, it is notable that we're talking about a former member of Congress who is now free, untethered to any election, any type of quest for power. So he's free to actually tell the truth about Trump. It's really interesting.
Look, the thing that bothers me is that my whole life I was told by newspapers and television predominantly that politicians are honorable people. Look at them. I mean, they're all dupes and cowards. So Barletta, what's he complaining about? He's like, I was the first to kiss Trump's ass, and I thought that meant something. Yeah, Lou, no, you're an idiot. And by the way, did you criticize Trump through all the terrible things that he did? Even as a right winger, a lot of the politicians don't agree with Trump on many things, right? Do they ever come out and say anything? No. Only at the last moment after Trump snubbed him does he say, oh, he was dead wrong. But even that's mild, right? And doesn't explain why he's wrong, doesn't explain what's wrong with Trump. And then he loses, of course, because he didn't get Trump's support. Trump has never been loyal to anyone. he buried his ex-wife on a golf course to get a tax break. You think he was gonna be loyal to you, you schmuck? Chris Christie was the first Republican legitimate candidate for president to get out of the race and endorse Trump. That was a big moment. I don't know if you guys remember it, but that was kind of a turning point for Trump becoming credible. And then remember, he stood like a goon behind Trump the whole time.
How could I forget? It was the best moment, yes.
And then Trump didn't pick him to be the VP because he thought he was too fat.
No, guys, okay, look. This is the best thing about Trump. Not the what he thinks about Chris Christie due to his weight, right? Like, not that. But the fact that he embarrasses and unmans all of these Republican phonies who presented themselves as these strongmen for so many years. And it turned out that they were just self-interested, narcissistic losers who immediately cower once a bigger narcissist enters the scene. And that's, of course, Donald Trump.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted just because he's criticizing Trump now. Barletta is a terrible guy. He was one of the first right-wingers to go, oh, that hateful prick who's calling immigrants rapists and criminals. I love that guy, right? So now loser Barletta comes out and goes, oh, but I thought the hateful prick would then support my hateful campaign. Instead, he supported the hateful campaign of another guy who's willing to kiss his ass even more. And as these congressmen point out, Trump's trick is not that hard to tell. And even then, he still blows it. He waits till it's nearly over and sees who's leading and then endorses the guy who's leading, right? And so he doesn't care about loyalty because he wants to improve his own record. Of course.
So Tom Marino is another former Republican congressman out of Pennsylvania, and he had some thoughts about the lack of loyalty from Donald Trump. In fact, he just simply says, where the hell is the loyalty? Lou and I were the first congressmen. You guys are embarrassing yourselves. Like, it's just, okay. Lou and I were the first congressmen to come out and endorse Trump in his first election. We took a lot of heat about it. I'm very disappointed in the former president because apparently the loyalty does not go as far as he says. Look, the fact that they refused to ever like criticize Trump, to critique him even lightly when they were in positions of power, makes their current comments, in my opinion, even more embarrassing for themselves.
Super embarrassing. They basically just told all their voters, yeah, we were lying to you the whole time. We thought Trump was a bad guy, but hey, we thought enough ass kissing would do the trick, but it turns out it didn't.
Yeah.
But there is a second layer to it, which is, yeah, this concept of loyalty. It just doesn't exist in America anymore. And I wish it did. I think loyalty is a great thing. I'm loyal to a fault, but
it's the best thing about you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. But also I'm a grown up, and I know that even if you're loyal to some folks, they might not return it, right? So there's some former hosts that have left, and even though we were incredibly kind to them, the minute they thought they could make a buck off of us, they went and lied about us anyway, because the world is filled with pricks. And Trump is the biggest one of all. And that leads to the last part of it, which is Barletta and the other hateful guy. If you guys couldn't figure out that Trump is not a good guy and doesn't care about loyalty, that he's only in it for himself, well, you're not very bright either, right? But at the end of the day, I'll take it. More Republicans that pile on, telling people who Trump really is, maybe it'll break through a tiny bit to Republican voters. Because Republican voters, guess what? You're just like Lou Barletta and the other congressman. You think he's gonna be loyal to you, that he's gonna build a wall, he's gonna do all these things that you want him to do, care about the average American worker, create more jobs. He's never done any of that. What's the only thing he ever did when he was president? Tax cuts for the rich.
Yeah, and if you think your wages went up because of Trump, just try to take a look at the ballot initiatives in your state at that time, because it was a ballot initiative where the majority of voters in your state voted to increase the state's minimum wage.
Like in Missouri, Arkansas, Florida, et cetera. And by the way, every Republican in those states fought that tooth and nail, and they wanted to make sure you did not get higher wages.
Yep.
And we had Matt Gaetz on the show right on election night, and we said, how about higher wages? He's like, oh, no. No, he's like, let's cut Medicaid instead.
The real problem is that there is a federal minimum wage.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
He doesn't even want you to have the $7.25 as a minimum wage. That's who Republicans are. That's who Donald Trump is.
Yeah. All right, next story is short, but I think it's telling and also highly amusing. So, Donald Trump is livid that the judges he appointed are not serving him as if they are his personal defense attorneys. Now, on social media, on Truth Social specifically, he posted, "Many Republican judges go out of their way to show they are beyond reproach and will come down hard on people before them in order to prove they cannot be bought." This is an amazing post.
By the way, he's criticizing.
I know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Isn't that, wait, aren't they supposed to prove that they can't be bought? He's saying, no, they shouldn't do that. They should be bought.
It's so good. Okay, let me continue. Or in any way show favor to those who appointed them.
Gee, I wonder who that would be.
People, including me, are oftentimes shocked. People are saying they're shocked by the lack of courage and wisdom shown. Is that what people are saying? Yeah, people are saying they're shocked by the lack of courage and wisdom shown by federal judges.
Yeah. By showing that they are not bought.
Yeah.
If they had more courage, they would show that they are bought. And if they had more wisdom, they would admit that they were corrupt.
Yeah. God, I love this. Okay, people, including me, are oftentimes shocked by the lack of courage and wisdom shown. As soon as they get appointed, they go rogue. Democrat judges are the exact opposite in attitude. Screw you. This guy appointed me. I'm a Democrat all the way. You don't have a chance. So sad. So he wasn't specific about what he was referring to here. So we can only speculate. And I'd love to do that because there are many instances in which judges he appointed did not side with him, including the dozens of cases his campaign brought before federal judges claiming that there was widespread voter fraud without providing a single shred of voter fraud. And many of the judges he appointed told him, get lost, you're not providing any evidence here, so no, we don't side with you. The other possibility is the Supreme Court siding with a House committee investigating Donald Trump. They wanted access to 6 years of his tax returns. And while Trump wanted the Supreme Court to block that request, the Supreme Court said, no, they can have 6 years of your tax returns. So there are some cases. Also, last month, they again refused to intervene on his behalf in the DOJ investigation of classified documents. I mean, the list goes on and on. And there's a positive element to this story, which is, yeah, a lot of these conservative judges, a lot of these Trump appointed federal judges are gonna rule in ways that we don't like, but they're not providing cover for Trump in these incredibly important ways, and I'll take it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So look, 60 courts ruled against Trump on his election fraud claims. And every one of them said, you've got a slight issue. It's that you have no evidence, none, zero. In a court, the blabbity blab on social media doesn't help at all. You actually need to present evidence. And so a lot of those were Trump appointed judges. And you should give them credit for that. Mm-hmm. And we're not like Trump. We don't want the judges that were appointed by Democrats to be bought or sell out to Democrats. And what would they sell out for? Probably for corporate stuff anyway, right? It's not like they're gonna sell out to help the workers. That's not a thing, right? So I don't want any judges selling out. But is it true that Democratic judges always rule with Democrats? Not remotely true, not at all. There is a different phenomenon though. Supreme Court justices, candidates will go in front of the Senate and say, I don't care about politics at all. And then on ideological grounds and oftentimes on corporate grounds, but certainly on ideological grounds, they will then split largely to the liberal camp and the conservative camp. So this whole, golly gee, all these court cases are new to me, I have no opinion on any of them, is obvious BS. But that's not what we're talking about here. Trump is saying, you saw it with your own eyes in that comment. He's like, why aren't they more bought? Well, I mean, like, well, I appointed them and they don't have the courage and the wisdom to do as I told them, even if it's against the law.
You know, but just real quick, going back to the conversation we had earlier about those who get manipulated by Donald Trump because he is like the country's top con man. You know, here's an instance where you have a big difference, right? Because you have judges, you got to go through a lot of schooling and stuff to be a judge, and they're not conned by him in a lot of these cases.
Yeah, that's true, and they've already been appointed. So they've got nothing to gain anymore, right? And on top of that, they're well educated. Now that doesn't mean that the conservative justices or judges are saintly, not at all. And they're very biased towards the thing that actually got them higher positions, which is pro-corporate positions. We've talked about that endlessly in the past. But for the purpose of this conversation, look, if you're a right winger, are you happy with that statement? Do you care about the American system of government at all?
Cenk, are you asking them a serious question right now? What are you doing?
Because I think that the right wingers, in their minds, actually believe that they love America. But this is the American system of government where the judges are not bought.
Cenk, they wanted to overturn the 2020 election.
I know, but they genuinely thought
that it was stolen.
That it was stolen.
Okay.
I know. It seems unbelievable to us, but if Republicans watching this go, oh, you guys are crazy. Of course it was stolen. Then how come none of the Trump-appointed judges? And you got Trump complaining, crying right now about how his own appointed judges said he had zero evidence. Why? And yet they still believe it. And guys, look at Trump. He doesn't even understand the bare minimum about how our system works. When you appoint a judge, that doesn't mean that they're your judge and they should do you favors. That's not the American system of government. He was president for 4 years. He still doesn't understand that. And he brazenly admits this kind of corruption in public. And yet the right wingers look at it and go, yeah, sounds good. I love Trump and I love America. But no, you can't have both. Pick one.
We're gonna take a brief break. When we come back, a GOP candidate who ran on a platform accusing others of grooming turns out to possibly be a groomer herself. We've got that story and more coming right up.
Drops. All right, guys, two things. So this is the last day of 9 days of impact. And if you buy something at shoptyt.com today, we're gonna give money to the Committee to Protect Journalists. It's a really great organization that helps protect journalists all across the world. So you see the increments there, $3 for a $30 order, $10 for a $100 order, etc. Go to shoptyt.com. This is us, instead of trying to take advantage of Black Friday, trying to help different great organizations do good work. And then I also want to tell you about the CFTC. So the chair of the CFTC is going to go in front of Congress, in front of the Senate, and they can ask him about an incredibly important loophole that bankers put into Dodd-Frank about 10 years ago. After the law passed, they inserted a loophole. And Jonathan Larson, our managing editor at TYT, has written brilliantly about it. And other advocates and Congress people have said, oh wait, that's totally true, that's causing inflation. It was a loophole that Trump refused to end. By the way, Biden so far hasn't ended. And what we want the senators to do is to ask a question of why don't you close that loophole so we could bring down inflation. Even just asking that question would make a monumental difference. So what we want you to do is to get involved, okay? Because if you guys sign the petition, maybe more importantly, and you'll see on the page there, if you tweet at Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow from Michigan, she's leading these hearings, she might receive the question, she might not even know about it. Remember, other Democrats that we presented to this to didn't know about it and have signed on. People like Ro Khanna, oh, that's great, it's amazing. We should close that loophole, and they would get huge credit for it. So go to tyt.com/regulation for inflation. tyt.com/regulation for inflation, and or you could, by the way, just use that QR code right there, and you'll get all the details. So my favorite thing in the world is going to be, and this is what we're going to try to do on a nuclear level very soon, is to get you guys involved in actually making the change yourselves. And this is the part of the beginning of that. You guys can lead the change. I totally believe in you. So let's try that in this case. And all we're asking for is a simple question that they ask. Okay? All right, let's go to our members. Al Besso said, I love extra member content. Thanks for saying that, Al. Thanks for being with us for so long. And yes, on December 9th, we're gonna release a mini doc about 20 years at TYT. That's just for the members, tyt.com/join to watch that. Crazy Lit Asian said, quote, it's an insult to bitches to call Tim Pool a bitch is my favorite quote today. Okay?
You're welcome.
Yes, Burrito Bandito said, Cenk should dye the top of his hair blonde like the soccer stars.
Please don't do that.
Interesting idea.
That's a terrible idea.
Okay,
don't do that. He's trolling you.
Okay,
Yeah.
no. I think he has my best interest in mind. Angie Pepper said on Twitch, NPR had a total fluff piece on today about how amazing Nancy is. Barf.
I can't.
Of course, that's all NPR ever does is propaganda for corporate Democrats and Republicans. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. More news.
Let's get right to it.
There are now 5 former Ohio State wrestlers accusing Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of knowing about a team doctor's alleged sexual misconduct.
43 men who say they were sexually assaulted, abused, molested, or harassed by Dr. Richard Strauss.
The new charges against Joel Greenberg.
Sex trafficking of a minor and stalking a political opponent.
Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz allegedly having a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl.
Investigators examining whether he, quote, violated federal sex trafficking laws.
You just watched a snippet from an excellent compilation put together by Midas Touch. And it outlines all of these different instances of right-wingers being accused of sexual misconduct, cover-ups of sexual misconduct, and more. And it is interesting to see it, considering it's the right wing in this country that goes out of its way to defame all sorts of ordinary working people, whether it be nurses, doctors, educators, of being groomers. That's what they love to accuse others of being. And it turns out that there's another example of someone who is on the right wing and has been accused of grooming students. In this case, we're talking about a woman who actually ran for county clerk and auditor in Washington County, Utah. And her whole platform was this anti-grooming platform. But after her unsuccessful run for office, some accusations came out regarding her past. So the woman that you see next to me is Patricia Kent, and Patricia Kent happens to be the former candidate for the county clerk and auditor that I'm referring to here. In October, Kent led a rally denouncing the LGBTQ community, displaying pictures of young girls at a pride event in the county. The fact that she displayed pictures of young girls specifically will be important later, so just remember that fact. Now, here's what Kent said at the rally. Quote, those are children, teenagers at best, being promoted to the ideology of same-sex transgender. I don't even know what that means, same-sex transgender. Okay, this is supposed to be the new exciting lifestyle that everybody's supposed to, and everybody's supposed to love it. They are grooming our children for immoral satanic worship. She continues to say, quote, I don't watch Hallmark movies anymore because I never know when they're going to sneak in that homosexual couple. They're not good family movies anymore. We know Walt Disney is no longer family friendly and hasn't been for a long time. Now, it is ironic that Patricia Kent would be so quick to accuse others of grooming or sexual misconduct, knowing full well what she's got in her past, the skeletons that she's hiding in her closet. So let's talk about those skeletons. Patricia Kent was forced to resign her job teaching middle school girls as young as 11 years old after her relationship with her young female students became a matter of public knowledge in the school community. When are Republicans not projecting? That's what I want to know.
100%.
More details though, more details. According to the Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, sounds pretty serious, Kent used her position as a middle school teacher to foster intimate and dependent relationships with young teenage girls. She wrote the children intimate notes, gave them gifts, and discussed inappropriate personal details with them against the express wishes of the students' parents and warnings from supervisors. She kept doing it. She kept doing it. And get a load of this. UPPAC also found evidence that Kent engaged in sexual relationships with at least one of the young girls, but the evidence wasn't sufficient to bring formal charges. But nonetheless, she was forced to resign from her position, and her teaching certificate was suspended in 2000.
Yeah, it's all projection, guys, all of it. So look, if we just got rid of the underlying problem, which is, to be honest, religion teaching people that being gay is wrong. It isn't wrong, it just isn't. There's nothing unnatural about it, that's why it occurs in nature. And if God didn't want them to be gay, why did he make them gay? Okay, so but anyways, if we got rid of that underlying problem, we would have a lot less of what you see here, okay? Because they're bottling up normal sexual urges and until they become toxic. And then they get released in these awful ways. Her hitting on go hit on women your own age. But she would never do that because she thinks it's satanic.
It reminds me of the Catholic Church, honestly.
Of course, yeah. Of course. So the Catholic Church is like, oh, being gay is totally wrong, being gay is totally wrong. And then and don't do anything if you're a priest, don't even get married, don't have relationships with women. And they bottle it up, and it turns out they're human after all, and they do want to have sex. And then who's around them? Oh, little kids are around them. And then that's who they target. And she was a teacher and there was little kids around her. And instead of having a healthy, normal lesbian relationship with someone else, she thought that she was, that she had to take it out and do it in these ways that involved subterfuge and secret so nobody would find out. And who's good to target if you don't want anyone to find out? She thought in her dumbass head that it was kids, because kids will be scared to tell, right? And they'll be confused and they won't know what she's trying to do, right? Easier to take advantage of. Just get rid of this dumb ideology. Look at what she said. She thinks, oh yeah, the other side is doing grooming our children for immoral satanic worship. Look, guys, there is no Satan, there is no Balrog, okay? No, it's just people doing things that they want to do and then blaming it on Satan, right? That's what it is. And so since she did that, she assumes the other side is doing it. And so the psychological fact of projection that we constantly talk about on the show, the reason why it's so important is because what they're doing is just assuming, and this is normal, you'll see it like if you love cheesecake, you probably assume everybody loves cheesecake, right? But it turns out some people don't like it. You're projecting your own desires and normal thoughts onto others, right? They're projecting their unnormal thoughts onto others. They think I like grooming kids, so I assume they like grooming kids, right? And it's just not the case. That's why you have all these Republicans over and over accusing people of being groomers and pedophiles, because it's running through their head 24/7. And when we say, no, we're not thinking that, they think, oh, they're lying, because everybody's thinking it. No, we're not, it's just you guys.
I've never been like forced to think about grooming and groomers more in my life than this year, and it's because of the right wing. And look, that Midas Touch compilation is just so excellent that we got to show you the rest of it, because there are so many examples. And it is amazing that like while Democrats are constantly like sitting by and taking the insane defamatory accusations from the right wing, I mean, the right wing's a target-rich environment. I don't see Democrats like attacking them for what they've been up to. And you know what? Thank God for I don't believe in God, but thankfully we've got Midas Touch that puts videos like this together to remind everyone of what's really going on here. Let's watch.
Republican National Committee was just sentenced to 12 years in prison for possession of child porn. He also told people in this group that his preference was for babies and saying that they were his, quote, absolute favorite and solicited another member of the group for videos of babies being raped.
George Nader. His criminal history included multiple convictions for child pornography and child molestation.
This morning, a judge sentenced Ralph Shorty to 15 years in prison. Police caught Shorty in a hotel room with a then 17-year-old boy.
All of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, to act like it's a new thing is ridiculous.
Yiannopoulos arguing sexual relationships between 13-year-old boys and men in their 20s could be consensual.
Some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming-of-age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are.
Back in 2004, Lauren Boebert's husband, Jason Boebert, was arrested for indecent exposure because he decided to reveal his penis to waitresses. Turned out one of the waitresses was 17.
A former Trump official who has pled guilty to child porn charges. He is a former Commerce Department official in the Trump administration, sentenced to a 5.5-year prison term after pleading guilty to possession of child pornography. This is Adam Hageman.
Tony Lazzaro allegedly gave underage girls expensive gifts and money in exchange for sex. He is charged with sex trafficking.
I mean, the people who cry out about groomers the most or sexual misconduct the most.
Yeah.
Just make sure you investigate what they're up to.
So we're gonna put a link down below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook to the whole Midas Touch video, because it goes on and on. Endless right-wingers who are involved in these scandals. Tucker Carlson talking about Warren Jeffs, a Mormon leader, raping young girls. And he said, well, so what? He married them afterwards. So you can see it for yourself. Roy Moore, Dennis Hastert, the list goes on and on and on. And guys, part of the reason why we get so frustrated on the show, but we try to fight back for you guys, is because almost no one else does. The Democratic Party never fights back for you, right? So when the right wing calls people on the left groomers, they're not just calling the leaders groomers, they're calling all of us groomers, all of you guys groomers, and all these awful, awful charges when they're doing it 24/7, and yet no Democrat ever fights back for you guys. So I'm glad Midas Touch did that. As you see in the video, a lot of the voices are TYT hosts because we cover those stories and we fight back and tell you what the reality is. The reality is there is one party in this country that has gotten caught over and over again doing pedophilia, and it's the Republicans.
When we come back, one of the top Fox News hosts expresses just how creepy he is. And later we'll talk about a United States Congresswoman who decided to tweet about farts. That and more coming right up.
All right, back during the social break here. Let's go to comments. First, super chat. No, I'm sorry, these are our member comments. Lulalis wrote in, coming of age relationships, haha, WTF. Yeah, that's exactly what you think it is. Scented Kerfuffle wrote in, I disagree with Cenk that all the grooming assault accusations are projection. There are probably a few people who were abused as kids and are accusing because of that. That's a great point. And I should actually clarify that every time we talk about it. And I have clarified that in the past, but not enough times. So I talk about it in the QAnon perspective. I think a lot of those guys actually did the grooming, the pedophilia, etc. But tons of QAnon people were actually abused themselves, and that's why they assume it's happening to everyone else. So half of them are victims at least. So it's a great point, and sent to Kerfuffle for not only a great point, but a good correction to us, $100 Blue Apron gift card. Thank you, you're awesome. Go to rewards@tyt.com and they'll verify you're a member and give it to you. Boomer Dragon Cat said, you're so right, Cenk. There's that point in your life when you realize all you held up as honorable and true is actually a mirage. That the truth underneath is much messier and more complicated. The key is to not let you get so jaded that you just stop caring at all. Couldn't agree more. There's a tiny section in my book about how I felt one of the reasons I'm so mad at mainstream media is because they lied to me about the Republicans. They pretend the Republicans were a good party, a reasonable party, when they were a nest of vipers. And they covered up the Southern strategy. It was the party chose to be racist. And the media never told me. So I'm walking around being a Republican as a young guy. I'm advertising the world that I'm a prick. Well, because the media never freaking told me, right? So anyway, if you want the book, you can pre-order at justiceiscomingbook.com. Theater Goddess says, unfortunately, there are a lot of mental health illnesses that have symptoms that make someone appear to be a good leader. A narcissist's charisma and confidence look like good leadership qualities, but are incredibly destructive to everyone around them. Yes, that is exactly right, Theater Goddess. So let's go to Super Chat now. So Eric wrote in, so many insightful points by both of you tonight. This is why I love TYT. Mainstream media talks about Ye and Trump. We talk about Medicare for all. Mainstream media talks Pelosi. We talk about insider trading. Real issues deserve real talk.
Agreed.
And I love that you guys are here for it. You care about it. The media says, oh yeah, if you give them real policies and stuff, they won't listen. Oops, they do. You guys do, so I love you for it. Waldorf Nation said, and yet the right says liberalism is a mental illness. The projection is real. Brenda wrote in, Pete that's Buttigieg, just tweeted in favor of the rail companies as if that should be surprising. So sick of government departments being run by corporate stooges.
Oh, the McKinsey Institute guy? Yeah. Shocking, wow.
Yeah. Michael Norris says, like I tell my students, freedom of speech is not freedom from being questioned or challenged. I wish every right winger got that lesson. I love AOC said, Cenk and Anna, when's the next time you're gonna host with Ben Mankiewicz and Steve O? Best would be with both of you. I'll tell you more about what Steve's doing, which is really interesting. The post game, Ben's on old school all the time. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. More news.
Let's get to that.
And if you understand nature, you understand there is not a war between the sexes. We need to make love, not war. And you need to stop chopping your hair off and calling us toxic.
There's Jesse Waters going on and on with this latest topic that he seems to be obsessed with, which is telling women what to do and who to date. Now, there's more to his weird plea, but first we need to give you some context. That's the important part to this story. Now, the five, we're discussing a story involving a rich heiress who allegedly paid someone $300 a day to deprogram the so-called wokeness from her daughter. Okay, so her daughter went to college and allegedly became woke, and it was so toxic and so terrible that they had to pay $300 a day to deprogram the wokeness. We'll show you a video of the daughter. Her name is Annabella Rockwell, describing what allegedly happened to her to Tucker Carlson in just a moment. But watch the video with a grain of salt, because she's now working for PragerU. And if you can recall from my debate with Prager himself, he loves to make up stories about how college students will, persecute a woman who says that she doesn't want to pursue a career and would rather be a homemaker, which is just laughable to say the least. But nonetheless, let's take a look at this video. Again, this is Annabella Rockwell.
As time went on and I studied history, I became completely brainwashed into believing that I was oppressed by our toxic patriarchal society. And I left school, I was sad, anxious, intellectually starving. And by 2015, when I graduated, I completely estranged myself from my family. So in this panic of me not communicating with my mother, she consulted a cult specialist. This person gave her devastating statistics that most people don't make it out, but a glimmer of hope that it tends to be young women who do. So she spoke to him and he made it very clear to her, do not affirm your daughter's newfound identity. You know her best, she is your child, don't affirm her.
Yes.
I made a lifestyle change, I stopped drinking, I started to believe in God again. And lastly, I had to unlearn my 4 years of wokeism by watching 5-minute PragerU videos online for free.
Okay, so that's the context that sparked this discussion with Jesse Watters. But before we get to Jesse Watters, I have to comment on something. Just don't go to college. No, it is interesting, right? Because right-wing parents who love to complain about wokeism on college campuses also send their kids to all sorts of expensive Ivy League schools, private universities. It's almost as if they know that, getting higher education is correlated to success in your career, in your life, more earnings. They just want to discourage you from sending your kids to college, or they want to discourage you from going to college in the first place, because they want the advantage. So they share all these ridiculous made up stories about wokeism on college campuses. We still have problems with rape victims not getting taken seriously on college campuses. Do you want to talk to me about wokeism on college campuses? And I'm sorry, one other thing I'll note. As a woman myself, who went to college, undergrad, graduate degree, got it all, okay? You know what I hear over and over again from people? Whether they're on the left, right, doesn't matter. When are you gonna have babies? When are you gonna have babies? When are you gonna have babies? When are you gonna have kids? When are you gonna have kids? When are you gonna have kids? Are you gonna get married? Or, by the way, I am married, but before I was married, when are you gonna get married? When are you gonna get married? When are you gonna get married? The idea that women get persecuted for wanting to be homemakers in this country is hilarious. But moving on, I just had to get that out. Watters engages in this rant because Jeanine Pirro brought up CRT on college campuses, and then Watters demanded that he not be discriminated against. So how is he discriminated against exactly? Let's watch.
Jesse, what Dane is talking about is the fact that 58 of the top 100 US medical schools have mandatory programs in the fundamentals of critical race theory that we've been told pretty much doesn't exist. It's a woke indoctrination to the doctors, and they're raising social justice as a focus. Is that relevant to medical school teaching?
Well, I don't want to be discriminated against as a straight white male by my physician. Like I said, if there's a mistake made and I undergo some radical gender reassignment surgery because someone has it in for me, that's going to be a problem.
So Cenk, I'm just going to open it up to you.
Okay, so there's a couple of issues here. First, I'm going to read you a graphic here to give you a sense of why they teach that in medical schools. But let's note for the record, she's like, they tell us critical race theory doesn't exist. No, we never said that. We said critical race theory doesn't exist in elementary school and junior high and high school that you guys were talking about. We said it's a graduate level class. That's why you guys are being absurd saying that it's in elementary schools. And guess what medical school is? Graduate level college. Oh, right, that's where you would teach it. Isn't that interesting? Just like we told you. But you see how they just do that sleight of hand nonstop? So why do they teach that in medical schools? Black, and not all of them, but a lot of them, and it's great. Why? Because let's look at this. Black patients are systematically undertreated for pain, decades of research have shown. In the 2016 survey of 222 white medical students and residents, about half endorsed false beliefs about biological differences between blacks and whites.
Residents, like they've already gone through the medical training. They're residents, and they think this. It's Jesus Christ.
And those who did also perceive blacks as feeling less pain than whites and were more likely to suggest inappropriate medical treatment for black patients, according to the paper published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. So they're teaching the doctors, hey, listen, the students, a lot of times, unfortunately, the meta studies have shown over a course of an incredible number of patients and doctors that unfortunately our profession does kind of discriminate against black people, but we're trying to fix that. So remember, guys, there is no difference biologically. That's what we're trying to teach you in medical school. We're trying to teach you biology between black folks and white folks. There's some diseases that affect one group more than another, and we're going to teach you about that too, because you need to be a doctor that knows facts, because we're trying to save people's lives, right? So there is no better place to teach that. And they're like, can you believe they're trying to save black people's lives too? And Jesse Watters comes in and goes, I hope they don't turn me transgender because I'm straight white male. And the Fox News audience is having the time of their lives. They think all this stuff is real. They don't know that Fox News is systematically lying to them and brainwashing them. They think, oh yeah, I bet the doctors discriminate against white people.
Yeah,
It's the exact opposite of what's true. Right?
By the way, the other thing that I would draw attention to is the high rates of maternal mortality during childbirth for Black women, because their concerns and their pain and what they're experiencing is oftentimes not taken as seriously by medical professionals. So they end up dying during childbirth at much higher rates than white women, if you're doing a comparative analysis there. Now, we're talking about race, but without a segue, Jesse Waters takes this as an opportunity to get right back into his creepy thoughts about women and what they should do with their lives. Let's watch.
And I want to speak directly to the heiress right now. Dana, hold my hand.
Oh boy.
Jeez.
Women need men. And men need women. We need each other. And if you understand nature, you understand there is not a war between the sexes. We need to make love, not war. And you need to stop chopping your hair off and calling us toxic. We are on a mission. Yes, we peacock, but we peacock for your attention. So fall in love and let's all live happily ever after.
Well, I'm a big believer in seeing a particular gender not as a monolith, but as a group of people who are very different from one another oftentimes. So when I think about a man that I love deeply, my husband, he is on a completely different playing field than someone like Jesse Waters. So my husband wooed me not by letting the air out of my tires so I'm stranded and have no choice but to be driven home by him. He wooed me in other ways, in sharing who he is as a person. Also, like, he's, anyway, other things. But that Jesse Waters definitely doesn't share. But my point is, like, no, don't put yourself in a big group of men. You're not the same as all men. And look, for some people like me, yeah, I do love men. I find men incredibly important in my life, okay? You were and continue to be a mentor for me. You're an important male in my life. I love my husband, he's my partner. I wouldn't be able to do many things in my life without him because it's a partnership that works for us. There are people who don't, they're not into heterosexual relationships. And if I were lesbian, I'd find the same love and comfort in another woman. But this is all to say, it's none of your goddamn business, you creep. Mind your own business. And like, I mean, dude cheated on his wife with a producer who he's now married to.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should be taking any advice from you on relationships.
So, and of course, why is he doing this? It's all political. You think he cares about you? I mean, that's the saddest part of all. That unfortunately, the Fox News audience and the Trump followers, they really think that Jesse Waters and Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson care about them. No. We've been telling you on the Young Turks exactly why Jesse Waters keeps going back to that same well since the midterm elections. But I'll show it to you one more time. Gender by marital status, how do they vote? Married women, 56% Republican, 42% Democrat. So Republicans have a 14-point advantage with married women. Single women, unmarried women, Democrats have a 68-31 advantage. That's according to exit polling from the 2022 elections. That's a enormous 37-point difference for unmarried women supporting Democrats. And Jesse Waters actually even said that the first time he started talking about this. He showed that graphic and he's like, and he just said it out loud. He's like, we have to make sure they all get married.
But like, why do you think that getting married is gonna suddenly change their political identity? Right, and are you under the impression that they're going to go out of their way to marry people who disagree with their politics? Because that's also not gonna happen. Like, I actually moved further to the left after I got married.
Yeah, and of course, since people on the right wing aren't that bright, he looks at that and thinks that there's a causal connection. That the minute you get married, remember it's 37 points one way, 16 points the other way. That's an unbelievable 53-point difference, right? That the minute you get married, they're like, oh yeah, I should be a Republican. Or I will now dutifully obey my husband, and my husband's a Republican, I will now be a Republican. Dude, it ain't 1955. You're missing it. One of the reasons why married women are more Republican is because they're older. And the older demographics, not for everyone, but generally speaking, when you look at the overall numbers, 45 to 85 is solidly Republican. And they're much more likely to be married than people under 45, under 35, under 25. But these knuckleheads don't get it. They really think, oh, if we just push them in, do a lot of propaganda to push them into marriage, they'll just instantly turn Republican. That's not how it works.
And they were more likely to benefit from an economic system before it was further deregulated and further devolved into the S show that it is today. You know, I mean, think about that. The working conditions for young women, those aren't gonna magically change once they get married. So many of the issues that are currently taking place in this country right now, which leads to the political identity that people form, those issues aren't going away, thanks to people like you. So the idea that all they need to do is get married and suddenly they're gonna love conservatives is insane. Anyway, let's move on. Representative Marjorie Greene wants to talk about flatulence because only the country's brightest make their way to Congress. Now, she's really a shining example of how America is for sure a meritocracy, right? So here's the tweet in question. So many people still wearing masks. I just want to ask you, if a pair of underwear, really thick ones, high quality cotton can't protect you from a fart, then how will a mask protect you from COVID? Now, she's disclosing quite a bit about herself here, which I really wish she hadn't. But nonetheless, that was, I think, easily one of the dumbest tweets I've read from a member of Congress. And that's saying something, because there are a lot of dumb tweets by members of Congress.
So what's amazing to me, Anna, is that they don't double check. Like, they don't ask a staffer. They've got like 28 staffers, right?
Yeah.
Hey guys, am I missing something here, right? If I was gonna say something like this, like bells go off in the back of your head, right? Like, there's probably a good reason why this doesn't make sense. Let me just ask someone. But they think they're so smart, they don't need to ask anyone.
Yeah.
She thought she nailed it with this. It's so sad.
Can I just say, like, who cares? Okay, I'm gonna get into the science of like, oh, here's how the virus works and here's how masks protect you. Yeah, I'm like, this is where we're at. I have to explain it. But aside from that, mind your own goddamn business. Why does it bother you that someone's wearing a mask or that a lot of people are wearing masks? It's none of your business. There's no mandate indicating that we must wear masks, so you're not forced to wear a mask. Why does it bother you if others wear masks? I remember when Republicans were losing it because they felt they were so aggrieved over alleged, I don't even buy it, criticism when they would wear the red hats. So if you think people should mind their own business and let you wear whatever damn hat you want to wear, why don't you mind your damn business when it comes to people wearing masks? It's none of your goddamn business. Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah.
Okay, like, anyway.
So look, it was one thing when people were saying you have to wear a mask to go inside a store, et cetera, because then it affects them. I know asking somebody to do the bare minimum to protect other people's health, for a right winger, that's the biggest crime in America. They're like, why would I want to help anyone except me? They're so selfish they can't see straight. But now it isn't about you at all. That other dude's wearing a mask because he wants to. You don't have to wear a mask, so why do you care? Because everything is projection with the right wing. You know how they always tell you, oh my God, the left wing wants to control your life. Dude, we can't wait to get you out of our lives.
Yeah.
You think I'm gonna voluntarily get involved in your life, right?
Dude,
and the reason
inhale as much of the virus as you want. In fact, I would love it. Go ahead. Seriously, find it, inhale it, Marjorie Greene. Show what a courageous woman you are in not wearing a mask and inhaling coronavirus, droplets all day long. I love it, do it, why
and
not?
Then sniff ivermectin, I don't care, okay?
Don't care at all.
So, but they love controlling other people's lives. Don't get married to someone who's, a man should not get married to a man. Oh, don't do that with your body. Don't have an abortion.
Freaking nanny state. I'm so sick of the nanny state. The Republican Party, nanny state 101, always up in our business. Who we can marry, what kind of sex we can have, what kind of education we can receive. Always up in our business. What kind of masks we can wear, what kind of clothing we should wear. Always up in our personal lives. Nanny state.
100%. So that's why now she's like, oh, someone over there is wearing a mask. I'm gonna control their lives. I don't want them wearing a mask. So I'm gonna do this dumbass tweet about farts.
All right, let's just go to graphic 3 real quick. It's embarrassing that it's come to this and we have to explain it. Gas particles are considerably smaller than viruses or the airborne water droplets that can carry COVID. Gases like methane and carbon dioxide are odorless, but once combined with hydrogen sulfide and ammonia in the gut, they become considerably more smelly. So when it comes to masks specifically, let's take a look at graphic 4 because you'll see an image here that shows you sulfur dioxide molecules or what it looks like and the size relative to a COVID-19 molecule. So COVID-19 molecules much larger, and the mask does protect you from transmission to the tune of 85%. N95 masks filter about 85% of particles smaller than 300 nanometers.
I just want to go to graphic 2 because I think this probably does a better job of explaining it. Ralph Toivonen wrote in on Twitter, the same way socks aren't designed to be used as condoms. Should have added dumbass.
It's embarrassing how many incredibly ignorant and stupid people we have in Congress today.
In Congress. All right, we gotta go. Members, we got a members only episode for you guys. We're gonna read more of your comments that are brilliant. We might give away more $100 gift cards. And we've got a hilarious story about someone suing because mac and cheese was a little too cheesy in their advertising. It's hilarious. tyt.com/join, or if you're on YouTube, hit the join button below the video. We'll see you there in a minute.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more